for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilwoman Barton, McComber, Wilden, Karn, and Wadman, so we do have a quorum. Councilman Wilden has volunteered Councilman Karn for invocation and Councilman Wadman for our pledge.
Better be a good one.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here as civic leaders and staff and citizens to discuss issues that are pertinent to our city. Father, we ask that we will have discernment as we look at the items on the agenda and make decisions that will affect our current residents and those in the future. And these things we humbly pray for in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, time has been set aside for public input. Time is limited to no more than 15 minutes total. This time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda tonight. If you're here for the public hearings, please hold your comments for the public hearing. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium. Is anybody here for public input tonight? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public input and go on to reports. Just wanted to share with the council, Mark and I were able to attend Sue Alexander's funeral. She was the first librarian and helped to start the library. She volunteered close to 6,000 hours, Mark. 5,200 hours to start the library when we had nothing. And when we do open the new library, we'll be the 5th largest municipal library. That's something that's grown out of a lot of love from a retired member of our community who passed away recently. So I wanted to share that with council and people this evening. Councilwoman Barton.
Mayor or Councilmember Carmen brought that up, but I just wanted to mention our department had an awards today, and just how amazing our police department is and our chief. And I told them I couldn't talk out because I'd cry because they're just so amazing. And the awards that were given out today were well deserved, and it was such a great experience to be a part of that and to really see what they're all about. You hear things here and there in the community, but you also hear a little bit more as a council. But to really see these awards and the amazing officers we have in our city and how they're taking care of us and Bluffdale, because we have a combined force, but just amazing to witness that. So thank you to Chief Burton and for your guys, your people, because you guys are amazing. Also, I'm going to make something else real quick. I just wanted to bring up Steel Ridge. I know we talked about it a couple times, but I feel like we're running out of time to address those concerns. They're very valid concerns from our residents, and we have changed code because of what happened over there. But I feel like as a city, we probably need to make sure that we're addressing it in a manner that's really going to take care of our residents in that area. So if we could just look into a little bit. Again, I'm just a little nervous because we're running out of time to really make it, to make a difference, and with a better fence or a taller fence or whatever we can do to mitigate the I don't even know how to say it. It's just really, it's pretty crazy over there. So just wanted to bring that up a little bit, just so we can make sure we're on top of that, because we're running out of time to make sure we're taking care of that. So,
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Karn.
Well, I'll report on, we had the opportunity to attend ULCT last week, and our residents will be happy to know that we were told for 2 days that we are not doing enough to alleviate the housing crisis in the state of Utah. So just so everybody knows, the state really wants us to build more and more.
Okay. Councilman McComber.
And not only do they want us to build more, they're going to penalize us if we don't in coming years. So just to piggyback on what Councilmember Karn was saying, I also wanted to just say how much I appreciated the recognition luncheon today. But one thing I wanted to point out that I was very impressed with and got very moved by was our chief was surprised by his entire staff, and they recognized him for Leadership and Excellence Award. And I just think that is so impressive when the people that you lead turn around and recognize you. And the look on his face was pure shock, and it was just really neat to be able to be a part of that. And I remember when I interviewed, I was part of the interviewing process for Chief Burden, and I just could not have been more pleased with the choice that we have made and what you have done for not only Saratoga Springs, but for Bluffdale. And have all of your people recognize you today, I'm sure is probably one of the highlights in your career. So, but thank you for your service.
Okay. Mark, anything from administration?
We have no need for closed session this evening. Councilmember Barton, we looked earlier this week because of the questions you'd asked last week, and you're confirming, but I believe there's a 6-foot fence, 6-foot tall fence that's anticipated to be built along the top edge of all of the, all.
Have you been over there? It's not tall enough.
It's not there yet.
There's a second one.
Besides what's already going in?
Yes, and it's going to be at the top of the wall, and that's what I was saying. It will be at the top of the wall, near the drive-throughs and stuff. But I'll have staff prepare some information and send that out to the council in response to your question.
I don't know how many of you have actually been over there. I know staff has, thank you. Like, I know Sarah has and stuff like that, but I actually walked over there again today before council just to make sure I was aware of even more of what had been going on. And I don't know if 6 foot fence will cut it, but I would love to, I'll go out there and measure and just make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, what I'm saying is 6 foot fence is not gonna, they're still gonna be able to see through the windows, like, it's not okay, right? And so, again, I don't mind taking out my measuring tape and measuring and seeing where the bottom is and stuff like that, but for me, when I was out there today even, yeah, it wasn't sufficient, but again, I encourage anybody who hasn't been out there to go look and just actually walk it. Because
Sure.
Okay, no, I haven't looked since they started putting up the fence, so
Yeah.
I'll go look.
So they just have like the footings down and stuff like that, right? That was out there when I was there today, but I did my measuring tape to see how tall, but 6 feet. I'm tall, I'm 5'10", right? And I don't think it's gonna be sufficient, so just a concern that we've had for a while, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. I have a consent calendar I'll entertain a motion on.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber,
Second.
second from Councilman Wadman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a public hearing for the budget amendments for fiscal year 2024, 2025.
Sorry, I've been up here so much for 25, 26, I was confused. I'm like, wait, that's not the right year. Real quick before we get to the budget amendment, we're not presenting anything on the final budget. That'll be next meeting. We'll be having the vote on that. We got notified by the state recently that we're going to have to, just a note on that, the state has notified us that we're going to have to increase the judges' salary, so that's going to be a noted change on there. And as well, we got notified by North Point that they're going to be raising their rates. So that's going to be something we're going to have to be looking at as staff in the next few months. For the budget amendment itself,
What was the second thing? I didn't catch it.
North Point.
Oh, North Point, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that going to require a fee adjustment?
Fee adjustment, staff feels at this time that it's a minimal change, that we can wait till we get the update from Republic as well and do it at the same time.
Actually, it's Neil over with the North Point Transfer Station.
Yeah.
He notified us that at Bayview, they're increasing the tipping fee there $1 per ton. And so that will be on all the tons that we haul to the transfer station or that go through the transfer station. And then Neil mentioned that there likely will be a rate increase in November, December at the transfer station. And so rather than do 2 rate increases for garbage, we think that we can adjust that when we get the final number and then adjust it only once for the year. So that'll be coming as
These
a
are
change.
just increases because of fuel costs, equipment costs, labor costs, and the cost to line the new trash cells.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, they'll.
We're still one of the cheapest in the nation.
Right, right. But we'll bring that back to you, but we just wanted you to be aware that we were notified of those increases.
Okay.
Okay. And then the budget amendment tonight, most of the items are dealing with A good problem to have is revenues are coming in stronger for a lot of our impact fees, so we're adjusting the budgets accordingly. Any questions for staff at this time?
Okay. Oh, Council.
Just as we have a lot of people here, sometimes I like to just take the opportunity to help people understand the fiscal year for the city is July 1st to June 30th. And so we're wrapping up. And so you're saying fees are coming in and people are thinking we're only 4 or 5 months in, but we're almost finished with our fiscal year that you're talking about. And then these fees, adjustments and things would happen after July 1st, which is our next fiscal year. So I just wanted to make that clarification just for many different people in the audience who aren't here very often. Thank you.
Can I ask one question, Mayor? On the admin bank charges, did we just, I can't imagine the number of people using credit cards is really jumping above and beyond what it has been the last couple of years. So did we just budget wrong, or are we legitimately
So we
seeing?
budgeted conservative. We didn't really increase it this last year, and it just continues to grow and grow each year.
Okay, well, I would just, I don't remember what we did in the budget that's coming before us. I would just suggest let's not budget conservatively. Let's like take a percentage of what people are actually using and apply that. Because I think we just under budgeted versus, hey, we saw $150,000 more in credit card transactions. I think that's just probably relatively consistent with prior years.
Yeah, and we'll be carrying that forward into next year. So you'll see that notice on the budget summary for next week, 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman McComber.
Councilmember Wilden, you actually reminded me of something. Thank you for bringing that up. When we were at ULCT, at the meeting, they had various booths, and I was talking to a couple, and I think it is time for us to maybe relook at our merchant accounts and fees, because they have some new programs that if you are allowing people to pay their utilities with a credit card and not passing through the fee to them, you get discount rates, promotional rates, and I don't believe, in my years here, I have not heard us talking about us getting a discount because we are not passing that fee through. So I would just like if we can look into that. So thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for a public hearing on this point. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. That goes for both public hearings tonight. We have the first one tonight, the budget amendment. Is anybody here for public hearing item 1? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the council.
I'll move that we approve public hearing item 1 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden,
I'll second.
second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Audrey?
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Councilwoman Barton. I did it wrong. Councilman McComber.
Aye.
Councilman Wilden.
Aye.
Karn. Wadman.
Aye.
Say anything.
Oh,
Say, Jim, I'm I.
your aye.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're good.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Worst roll call vote ever.
It is
Mundane
a
item.
new city record. Okay, public hearing item 2, proposed street name change, currently Buckhorn Bath Ave.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We do have the applicant here, Michael McKay, if he wants to come on up. This is a return item
I
from
love that it's
January.
Yeah.
January 21st. We had direction from you as staff, to go back to the residents and do a survey ourselves, and so we did that. We went door to door. Sam, who's a planner too, and I went door to door, and we hung tags and for those that weren't there, but we had some great conversations with residents that were there. And so we did have a little malfunction with our survey, but we did get that cleared up. Out of the 27 residents that we survey that live on that street, only 18 replied to our survey. And so unfortunately, I did not put those survey results up here, and I wish I would have. I did put just a summary of those. So out of the 18, 18 out of the 27 replied, and 6 of those were in favor of the name change, and 12 were opposed, and 9 did not respond. Additionally, 2 residents reached out via email since the staff report. We've had an additional one reach out. However, both residents that reached out by email also took the survey. So that, and then there were other residents that sent emails during the first public hearing. So, but most of them that had responded did reply with that to that survey again when the city had submitted it. So out of that, what I included in your packet as well, which I didn't get until the last public hearing, was the survey that the applicant sent out. So he went door to door. I don't know I believe you had other residents that helped you do that. No, it was just you and your family. So those were responses, and I did front and back because some people did leave comments and for you to see. I wanted you to be able to see that, to compare that with what staff has found as far as that survey. It seems like they had a little bit more response than we did as staff. Maybe it's because they felt like they had already responded. I don't know the details of that. However, we have, in our staff report, we have given you the option for approval, denial, and a continuation. What did I just do? Sorry. There we go. So option 1 we put in as denial based off of our results from our staff survey. And then the other options are approval and continuance again. With that, if you have any questions for myself or for the applicant, but it is a public hearing, so.
We do have the applicant as Councilman McComber. You have a comment?
Just so of the 18 that responded, how many were against, including the emails?
So including the emails, well, you have to remember the 2 that responded also did the survey in against.
So don't
include
twice.
the emails, right. So in the response, sorry.
There was 18.
So there 18 responded 18 responded out of the 27. 6 were in favor and 12 were opposed. 9 did not respond. So out of the 27, 6 were in favor, 9 were
about
opposed.
67% against.
Supermajority.
So it's a supermajority. That's unfortunate because okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
No? Moment. You have something?
That's not a question. We can do it after the public input.
Okay. We'll open it up for public input if the applicant wants to speak also during public input. Same rules apply. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetitive comments and state your name and address for the record.
Michael Mackey, 346 South Buckhorn Bath Avenue, applicant. I don't know that I really have much more to add from our previous hearing or from the findings of this one. It does feel like it flip-flopped the other direction. Last time there were only 6 opposed and 18 for, and this time there was 12 opposed and 6 for from the city results. I don't know if there are any safeguards in place that may have prevented multiple people from scanning the code and doing it multiple times, but it does feel like a major shift from our first set of results, but I don't really have anything else, I think, to add on those findings, but thank you.
Anybody else for public input? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public input. Councilman Wilden?
I would just say, Gina, you guys have done great work. I think you went above and beyond going and knocking doors and things like this. One of the things I think would be important in the future as we create a policy around if someone comes in and requests a name change, this is the software we want you to use. Here's I call them disclosures. I'm thinking banking, but here's the potential implications, everything. So it's like abundantly transparent. You guys went above and beyond. You did what we asked, and I super appreciate it. But in the future, I want the petitioners to have to use our very specific parameters to go there. I would guess that some of the shift was related to, oh, now they understand the consequences of what happens. And I'm not, that's just my opinion, I don't
Be
know.
a fee? Do you think we should charge a fee?
Yeah.
I think so too.
So currently, right now, our code is very minimal in regards to what you're saying. So we would need to codify that, and that's, I mean, this is not a city-initiated or, change, and so it somewhat different, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, right now, we're just charging them per hour because we don't have a fee for it. So, and the code does say that the applicant, whoever applies for a street name and it does get approved, they would pay for the new signs to replace it. In this particular instance, it is, I think, 3 signs that would have to be changed. And Jeremy can speak to the cost of those signs. I think he gave that to us. It's about $300-400. So each sign. So there are some things that the code states, but like I said, it's a paragraph. So this does help us to change that and to codify some of these requirements.
And I think also not just street name, any other thing that a resident can initiate or someone in the city can initiate that requires some type of survey is us provide the tools saying this is what you have to use, this is what you have to say. So it doesn't, so they don't go out and do it and then turn around and we have to do it and get different results.
It's a great idea.
So I just save everyone time.
We'll make note of that.
That was my comment I had.
We need to have that brought back, whatever that policy is.
They need to work on it, yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, can I?
Sounds like a good thing for the community development director.
You got 30 minutes.
One of the, if I remember correctly, one of the other concerns too was people had a concern about the name and it not being, people didn't know where it was, or they didn't.
Yeah,
It was hard to pronounce, or it was
With the situation that the applicant has faced in multiple calls to emergency services, during a high-stress situation, they weren't able to relay the name. They had to relay it several times before the 911 caller could understand them. But obviously, it was a high-stress situation, so that is the reason that they had asked for the.
But that could be with any name too, right?
Sure.
Okay.
I would encourage residents to do their cell number. You can register it with the 911 service so that when you call in and
Sure.
caller IDs and
That's
knows
a
where
good
you're
idea.
at and located and stuff. But because the old days, right, we had our home phones and
Right.
everyone knew where you were, so you didn't really have to even stay. That's not even a bad thing for the reverse 911, which we've had to use in our city multiple times, where we've had to reach out and tell people to evacuate or be aware of this or that. And so registering your cell phone is probably a really wise thing to do. So just
Great.
public service
Great
announcement.
advice.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I will entertain a motion.
Well, I would just say before I put a motion, I do appreciate, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, the resident that came in.
Michael.
Michael, thank you. It went through the process and everything and getting involved and doing it the right way. Really appreciate that, but unfortunately, my vote isn't going to go in with your hopes that I have to go with what the majority of the residents down there have desired based upon survey results that met the criteria that we were looking for, that they're fully aware of the implications, so.
Okay.
So that being said, if you'll accept a motion?
Yep.
I move that we approve no.
Deny.
I move that we deny public hearing. I should pull up, that's gonna come out. Pull up the specific verbiage.
It's on the screen.
Is it on the screen? Well, that just has it has the denial. Okay, I move that we deny the proposed street name change, and as currently stated on the agenda, including the staff findings and conditions listed.
Okay. I have a first from Councilman Wilden,
Second.
second Councilman Wadman. Any further discussion? Barton?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. We have business item 1, Viviano Community and Village Plan.
All right, on to the next one here. So the applicant is Tyler Cole and Taylor Spenlove. Taylor is with PRI. Has asked for an amendment to the Viviano Community Plan and Village Plan. This will be the second one. The first one, I believe you saw back a couple years ago. There's quite a few changes in what is being asked. And so I kind of want to go through those with you. First of all, what we recognized as staff was that the building permits were not matching up with the village plan and community plan. And so we reached out to the applicant or the developer and said, hey, these don't match. You need to match your village plan and community plan. I'm going to keep it as village plan. They're both one document, but I'm going to say village plan. So what they did is I'm going to show you some side-by-sides, and I didn't do that in your packet. It would have been a very lengthy packet, and so I wanted to show you some of these differences here. First of all, you have the detailed lotting plan. This is on page 13 of the current proposed amendment, which is on the right side, but the left side, you can see that, I'm sorry, I think you might have gotten those two mixed up. Flip those, I just noticed that. The old one is over on the right-hand side. I believe, yeah, it is.
Old one's on the right.
The old one is on your right on the screen. I just mixed those two up, so I apologize. So the new one is on the left. The dates are mixed up as well, so switch them. Anyways, that you can see that there's a smaller footprint. In the previous approved plan, they had those ramblers on the ends of the townhomes. That has changed, and then they reorganized the attached single-family units, and they got rid of 2 single-family lots so that they could kind of spread some things out and open up their entryways and entrances into the development and provide a little bit more open space. The footprint on the townhomes has lessened a little bit, but again, as far as density goes, they went down 2 units and just reorganized their footprint and essentially the elevations. So the clubhouse, they did change the pictures of that. You can see this was in 2022. On the left-hand side, the clubhouse is a little bit different design than what is on the right. And here are the elevations that were provided in both plans. So again, I'm switching sides on you here. So the left side is the old version originally proposed. The right side is the new version. Single-family homes changed. So the articulation on the single-family homes, they improved their elevations to have more building articulation, more building materials, et cetera. And again, they have the 2-story homes. Again, this provides staff a lot more detail for us to process building permits, so we make sure that they're meeting their village plan. And then the townhome. So this is what spurred us to ask the applicant to make these changes, because what was being proposed what was being submitted on building permit didn't match the village plan. And so this is what has changed, and the applicant can speak to that, the reasons behind that. I'm just going to show you the details here. So on these units, the 3-plex, basically they took away the 3, well, they didn't take that away. They still have 3-plexes, but it's going to be the style on your right-hand side. So it's going to differ a little bit in that sense. You have the 6-plex homes, townhomes. Again, articulation has changed, but there is more additional building materials that are being used on these elevations. They did improve the building elevation on the rear for the upgraded elevation on page 20. you'll see of the village plan, you'll see the upgraded facades for those along Pony Express and the main roads. So, oh goodness, I keep hitting that. Patio homes, again, they upgraded the elevations from what was originally approved to these new ones. And the multifamily attached. And Taylor can explain the reasoning behind this. They had two-story multifamily attached. These are the duplexes. So they had a two-story on one side, a single family on the other. It was kind of a funky little setup. And so they unified them a little bit better and are using this as more of their ADA compliant type product. The pool house, they got rid of the pool house. They didn't get rid of the pool house. They've attached the pool house to the clubhouse now. So they only need the one maintenance building current. So that's one of the proposed amendments. And then their colors. So they really detailed out in this new amendment the color palette, the materials that they're using for these different buildings. So each building, which will comprise of anywhere between 3 to 8 units, will be assigned a color scheme. This, in a sense, helps us as staff because we're looking at a legislative document, basically our code. When we're reviewing a building permit, we are now able to match these better. And we do require this to be submitted with the building permit, to tell us this, hey, this building that was submitted for the building permit is this color scheme. So we can now match that correctly. Their phasing plan changed, and just in the way that they were developing, so we had them update that. And then the detailed lotting plan, they changed their building numbers. Again, they kind of rearranged, showed a little more detail on the attached, the duplexes on the right. One thing to make sure to understand is on the lot summary, these are buildings. So it may be different. It's a little different to understand. The lot summary is, so single-family units are, 57? I'm not to that page on my staff report. 57, where on the right-hand side, it's 55, so there's the loss of 2 units for single-family. However, multifamily attached, single-family attached, that is the duplexes, which they went down one building, but they didn't go down in unit numbers, if that makes sense. So they didn't decrease in units, they just decreased in buildings because they split one of those duplexes up, and essentially they're still considered duplexes, but they're split duplexes. That's in the right-hand corner down here. They kind of,
There's no lot line, it's a 0 lot line?
yeah, all of these are 0 lot
You
lines.
said they split it.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
So we basically made it a single-family home, that's all. But it's the same floor plan as the duplex.
So it has the same side setbacks as a single-family home?
Well, as the same setbacks as the duplexes would have against an adjacent duplex, but it's a single unit. We couldn't fit 2 units together, so we essentially just made one unit of that building type to be a single-family home. If you look at lot number,
Corner right here. So all these are duplexes, but they didn't have room for this to be a duplex, so it's a one-plex.
but it's the same floor plans as one of the duplexes.
Setbacks as a one-plex, but it just looks like the duplexes. So it's really a single-family.
It's a single-family
Family
home.
home.
Family, but it's half of their duplex product.
Yeah.
So it needs, okay.
And then like the multifamily buildings, those didn't change
As a shared drive.
as far as the number of buildings. And then the patio homes didn't change, but the common buildings, like I said, the pool house, they had 2 buildings for that. They are now incorporating that into the clubhouse. So that brought that down, or 1 building, sorry, which was the pool house. The parking plan did change. If you look at the comparison between the 2, they have decreased on the front-load townhomes. They went from 68, they increased those to 81 from the 368. So those are the parking stalls and guest stalls that are associated with the townhomes. So they went up 9 units, 11 units, or 11 stalls, sorry. And then nothing changed for the rear, the rear load townhomes are essentially the patio homes. That didn't change. And then it looks like on the clustered family homes, they did increase parking on that from 13. They're building, sorry, I'm looking at this. The one-bedroom units, they did have only 10. So this is where those changes came from. They had one-bedroom units. They only had 10 one-bedroom units before. Now they have 46 one-bedroom units. And then they have 86, they used to have 86 two-bedroom units. Now they have 50. So they kind of balanced that out a little bit to provide more one-bedroom units. And that decreased the parking on the 86 two-bedroom units, but then that went up in the 2 one-bedroom units. They are providing 1.25 stalls. So essentially, they increased their parking requirement they increased their parking for this particular amendment. And then the fencing detail. So the fencing detail, what they've done is on the previous fencing product that they provided, they did provide the precast. I believe they changed the color, right, of the precast.
Color and just the pattern.
So the finish. And then they added a Trex fencing and I'm going to show you this here. So the vinyl fence that was originally approved is going to be retained on the inside between the units, but on the exterior of the whole subdivision, they are going to use this, on the right side, they're going to use the Trex, which is the shadow boxes.
It's a great part. I've used it.
So they're going to use that instead of the vinyl. So the vinyl will stay inside the community, but surrounding the perimeter, they will use the Trex fencing. The other two remain the same.
Where's the concrete fencing go?
Oh. So along Pony Express is the precast. And then the Trex fencing will go along all of the single-family homes that face I can never remember that road, Kings Canyon Road. And then the South Road, those will be faced by the Trex fencing. So those are the changes. Again, I put phasing plan in there twice. Anyways, the exception, yes. And this goes back, I'm going to go back to this. I was going to put this out in the elevations. I apologize. They are asking for an exception on the townhomes. So the townhomes that are backing each other within the development, they're asking for an exception to do one material, one color, where they're facing each other. There's about 7 buildings that will deal with, well, half of a building, and then 6 other buildings. And let me just show you. They're all 6, not all of them, but there's 6. So Sarah's going to point them out. So there's these.
So is the goal to make them all gray? Is that what the plan is?
No, they'll have different color palettes.
Okay.
Just one material.
So the request for the exception is when a back of a building is facing the back of the building and then they each have individual fence. So those backs aren't facing open space or streets. And so their request is if they can do one color, one material on those, and it affects this set of buildings here, this set of buildings, a little bit just right here.
Yeah, there's 6 there, and then 12 there.
Yes. Is that all?
Yeah.
Can I just make one comment? It actually does have 2 materials and 2 colors because we're we're casing all the windows in a hardy detail versus a stucco. So it will have a different color trim around the windows out of hardy.
And is the other material on the back, like siding, hardy,
It's stucco.
stucco?
So it's, let me go back to it.
And then, so you'd have the color of the stucco and then the hardy.
Color of the hardy stucco.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so it's that middle one.
This would be what it would look like with.
The dark is, the windows are cased too.
Windows will be cased in hardy.
Yeah, that's good.
So one thing we did ask them to add to the pages was the prescriptive language of how they are meeting page 20, which is their upgraded facade, and how they're meeting that. And so that was something that was really important because, as we know in other developments, that prescriptive language isn't there. And so we've really asked for them to put that there so that we're not having to go back to them and saying, how are you meeting this? And so
You're in a
then
relation when it's facing like Pony or a road.
it will be that bottom one.
With little peaks.
Yes, it'll have the gables.
Materials, vertical.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's meeting the intent of the code.
Right, and essentially it's meeting their village plan. Because page 20 hasn't changed, but that's where I'm like, okay, you have to make sure that they are meeting this, and how are you meeting it for these elevations that you're proposing? With that, do you have any questions for either I or Taylor or staff?
Okay. Do you have something, Sarah? Okay. Councilman Carn?
So I have a few questions. Are these streets all private or public in here?
Within the community, they're all private. Outside, so Kings Canyon is public, and I can't remember the name of that street for the life of me.
The South Road.
Okay, I appreciate the increase in parking, and maybe I'm just not seeing it. Do you have any general community parking in here? Guest parking that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, so if you see along the clubhouse, there's some at the top, so right through there, that's clubhouse guest parking, right? And then you'll see some at the top of the patio homes right there. They have a few next to the building, the ones that are back to back, or front, they're,
So like, what about like all these properties on the east side?
so the east side, they actually have more. So along those private roads, there is parking, there's guest parking.
Okay,
All the
All right.
yellow and orange, all that orange
is guest parking.
all that orange is guest parking, all the yellows guest parking, then everybody has a 2 or 1 car driveway.
Okay, and then this might just be because of, it's in the DAP, but don't we limit it to 6 units connected and they have 8?
That's in a different village plan.
Okay, we approved this 8 connected here before?
Right.
Yes.
All right. The thing I don't see in here is a whole lot of space for snow removal. Where are you gonna push all your snow? Is that required? Heated streets? That's nice.
You know, there's some people where I work that would love that heated street, so. No, these roads, first of all, are, we always build roads to cities with standards versus, even if they're private roads. And I know that you have ordinances that require that in most cases, but we do have the full park strip. We're gonna be managing this project for,
You're the property manager.
yeah, our company, so it's one property management that owns all of these units, and it will be taken care of.
Okay, and then my last question, someone brought this to me today, is when will the light be installed to get across the street to Vista?
Their main intersection. Is that what the light's going?
That, I do not know
I don't have the schedule.
about that. The light at Pony and
The
King.
light at the intersection to go across the street to Vista.
It connects this neighborhood.
It is being
But like in
installed.
this first
And I-
phase, like this summer?
I want to say that it's,
Okay.
let me look at the vehicular plan.
Yeah, before school starts in August?
There's people with occupancy. There needs to be some way for them to get across.
Right.
I believe it's with the first phase. But that's also a big phase.
I don't have the schedule, but I do know that it's in a scope of our contractor who's doing conduits right now for electricity.
Jeremy, if you can get that for us. Then my last question, this is, I mean, you made some changes, which I'm all okay with. My only question is, how do you have such a dramatic change from 22's clubhouse to what you actually started building? And we said, that's not what you showed in your plans.
So this is I mean, we've been working with staff on this for a while now. I actually started working for Property back about 2 years ago, and I came on board. This project was being mismanaged, I'll say, from our team, and I reached out to the city and found some really market issues with the product that was approved. We had a 2-story duplex unit that had a master bedroom in the basement. There were some issues with the project. So I reached out to the planner at the time, who's no longer with the city, in 2023. And we went down a path, I think that as we went through preliminary and final site plan approval, all of these elevations were included in those architecture reviews. But I don't think the process wasn't followed. And as we've gone through, there was some misunderstanding, because like I said, we were going through preliminary and final site plan approval with these elevations, and then it just didn't get caught. And the planner that was involved, like I said, is no longer here, and Sarah and Gina have been working with us to kind of make sure that it all matched the final site plan approval and the village plan.
Yeah, and I'm by no means pointing fingers or making accusations. It's hard when we have an approved plan and the developer puts in something else and then comes back and says, "Ooh, sorry, can I get an exception for that?"
Well, and to be fair to the developer, the planner that's no longer here made an error.
That's fair.
The changes were,
Yes, we have
right.
ownership on that.
I
No,
believe.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? We've done this before with other developments where they come back and say, actually, we put in something cheaper than we were supposed to. Can we get an exception? Yeah.
Right, and once this was discovered, the developer's been fabulous to work through the
That's great.
concerns and make corrections and willing to bring an amendment, and we've all been working to correct a past mistake.
Oh, and that's great. And I don't really have any problems with these changes. This is more for my education. Thank you.
and to report the history of it.
Councilmember Comber?
So, quick question on the clubhouse. I know it's under construction. Is it going to be 100% done with the pool, with phase 1, or is it?
Our intent, the substantial completion date is January 1 of that, for that clubhouse. They're trying to get the permit to build the pool now. They're putting the pickleball playground, all that stuff in this summer.
So that'll be open this summer. When's your first occupancy?
The first occupancies will probably begin in July or August.
Pretty good. You're getting amenities with very early on, which
We
is
may hold off, though, until the clubhouse is complete.
in
And we
January.
have the luxury of doing that. We're not a typical developer.
Well, the fact that you're not even finished with phase 1 and you'll be done with your clubhouse, that's a great timeline. I'm just going to throw this out there because if you know me, this is my personality. I just love that we have all these changes that have come in. I appreciate reduction in density, extra parking and things. I'm just surprised with the amount of burden in the region and requests to put trailers in parking lots of the predominant religion in the region. You didn't come in with a amendment, part of this amendment, to actually put a chapel on your property where, for the most part, a very large portion of this property will be attending the predominant faith of the region. And I just think it's interesting that your response before was you'll put a church next door and force it on the next developer who you sell land to, where you're the landlord and the developer, there's no church. And so of all the changes, I thought, oh, you would see that there is a really big demand and you'd come in with a church on your property, but that didn't happen.
Well, it's all the same property, so there will be a chapel on the church, on the property that's there.
Right, that you'll sell to another developer.
Well, we'll hold back the land for the chapel.
But who will put the road in front of the chapel and the infrastructure? All of the expense
Yeah.
that goes into a chapel is not just the land.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money that goes into the frontage of the road, and all of those fees are being passed on to the developer instead of you as the developer You expect other developers to meet the demand for churches, and I'm just putting on the record that you did not meet your own demand. So I just find it very frustrating, especially when I have a trailer across the street because you have like 6 wards
Yeah.
in that building. So you don't need to really respond. I know that it's not your position.
It's not my position. I don't deal with any of the
But
ecclesiastical.
I do want you to,
stuff.
you can take that back because it is still very frustrating to me that all of this impact and that you are passing the
Yeah.
buck. Thank you.
I did have an update for you, Councilmember Carn. Yes, Schoolhouse, intersection of Schoolhouse and Pony, the signal is with Viviano Phase 1.
And Schoolhouse is now Kings Canyon,
Oh,
is what it was recorded, but yeah.
it's with Phase 1, so it's part of the Phase 1 construction.
Phase 1 could be over the next year.
It's 115 homes.
Come in.
So Phase 1 is currently being built, so it will have, I don't know the timeline of that construction.
I think generally the bond performance agreements require a year or 2 years or something like that, so it's,
I received this specific question today. Can
Right.
someone get back to me on that?
I like to date. I like to see occupancy before next school season, like a light post.
I mean, that is a discussion I can have with our inspectors and stuff, whether that should be an occupancy-related improvement or not.
Okay. If you could just get that and report back to us.
I'll get you our schedule so you have it.
If I can, I think we hear your request, and I request from the council is if we can get the light in prior to school starting in August, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing.
occupancy especially.
So we'll certainly meet with the applicant and the contractor and ask the question if that's possible.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item 1, Viviano Community and Village Plan Major Amendment located at 98 South Yellowstone Place. Tyler Lloyd with Cole West Design as applicant, ordinance 25-28, dated today with any staff findings and conditions in the packet.
I have a first from Councilman Carn,
I'll second it.
second from Councilwoman Barton. Any further discussion? Carn,
Aye.
Barton,
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Wadman.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Business item 2, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code for the City of Saratoga Springs for trampoline parks, courts, and bounce house use.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this came about, we've had a lot of different uses coming in that we haven't had in our use table, so we're trying to fix that so we don't have to have the parking determinations all the time. We're adding the definition of bounce house. And we wanted to differentiate between bounce house and trampolines, because you can go and have just the inflatables rather than the trampoline, so we wanted to make sure those are separate. Definition of trampoline court, trampoline park. We allowed it in regional commercial, heavy commercial, office warehouse, light industrial, and business park. And then we made the parking 1 stall per 400 square feet, which is roughly over 2 per 1,000. So they did the parking determination for the one in North Shore for that one, and that was 1.87, and this gave us a little buffer, so we have a few more stalls. Anybody have any questions?
Councilwoman Comber.
I'm curious why we made the definition of bounce house so narrow, because parents, it says especially by children. I just don't know why we had to make that classification, and maybe this is for Kevin too. It's like, when we make a definition, we try and keep them pretty broad, because adults can go on those bounce houses, and they often do, especially when they have little kids and things too. So I just wondering why, if there was reasoning behind that. Is that something that Kevin gave back feedback, or is that something we did as staff?
It was just from the ones around, the ones I've seen and what he's seen, it was mostly for kids, but I do
Because
understand.
trampoline courts are off, especially by children, very few parents use it. I mean, so it's like, I don't know why we would have that one definition. I would rather just be means a springy inflatable structure for recreational jumping for a fee. I mean,
We can remove that, that's,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I'm just wondering why we were so narrow in the definition of bounce house by saying used especially by children when adults can use it as well. I just think that it might be wise for us to not be so prescriptive.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Generally, you don't want definitions to be broad because then everything can fall under that definition.
Right, but where adults can be using this, and
Yeah.
children, is an 18-year-old still a child? Is a 16-year-old a teen now? You know, I mean, I don't know. It just, to me, when I was reading it earlier, I was like, why are we being, and I wanted to just hear if there was a reason. If there's not, then I would feel more comfortable reading.
I'm fine removing it. I've seen Mark at bounce houses a lot. He was yelling, "Wee!"
Councilman Carnes?
Can you, what necessitated this change?
Well, this originally started back when that one came in North Shore, and we were trying to add them because we didn't have the use, and it's just
Yep.
taken a while with all the other.
We did a exception on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that,
So, okay, maybe I'm just feeling feisty. But when that product came into our city, I remember we were specifically told that they were gonna be super,
Busy.
well, no, they were gonna be very selective on the types of customers. They couldn't expect a bunch of gymnastic studios and bounce houses and those kind of things. And I'm being told that we don't have enough of this product in our city, we need more. And I don't want to, I guess I'm hesitant to ease the code and put in more office warehouse to get more bounce houses and trampoline parks and gymnastic studios when we need more jobs. It just concerns me. I understand we did it in the past, and I'm probably okay with this. This is a office warehouse use. We're making this easier for other office warehouses to bring in more of it.
Parking is pretty, I'm the parking Nazi.
I know.
It's pretty good parking.
Okay. If you're comfortable with it, then
I
I'm,
mean, I feel like that was actually pretty.
and we can adjust that to where it's not in different zones, whatever you propose.
Is there a concern over the zones?
Because they have it in a lot of zones, to your concern.
I mean, frankly, I'm gonna lean on your expertise here a little bit more, because you do more parking.
I don't know why we would really want it in commercial zone, because then you're losing a lot of sales tax opportunities.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it there. I mean, remind me HC?
It's heavy commercial.
Heavy commercial, that's fine. And then business park, I would maybe, to your point, Chris, that's what the last thing we want in the business park, because that's what.
Is to allow another-
That's where we want doctor's
Yes.
offices and lawyer, whatever else kind of, professional space, businesses. So I would maybe I would agree with maybe removing from regional commercial and business park.
And LI is,
Light industrial,
Light
which we
industrial.
have nothing zoned that right now.
I don't think we,
So if we make those changes, does that affect?
no.
no, nothing
There's
right now.
nothing in the pipe or anything.
Right.
It's a very good question, though. There's no
Exactly.
proposals presented.
In those zones.
Old records are old one, and light industrial, but we don't have.
Because we replaced the office warehouse with.
With-
Light industrial and.
And HC.
I think just
Okay.
removing commercial and business park. Yeah, that's a good point.
There's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make this one since I created a nightmare. I move that we approve business item 2 as stated on the agenda with all staff findings and conditions, with an additional condition that we remove the zones regional commercial and business park as permitted uses and not even have them as optional. And then also, if we can remove the language to just state, if you can go back for me.
Oh, yeah.
It means a springy inflatable structure used for recreational jumping for a fee. So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber,
I will second that.
a second from
confusion.
Councilman Carn. Staff have everything that you need to be clear, okay? There's no further discussion. Wadman?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, staff.
Mark has an update for the Mountain View corridor for us.
Mayor and council, I apologize. Under reports, it completely slipped my mind, and Jeremy was kind enough to send you an email after the item slipped my mind, but I wanted to circle back. Yeah. We received our bids. We opened our bids earlier today for the Mountain View corridor widening project, which would also change and realign the intersection at 400 North, and I'm going to let Jeremy explain what the bids mean for us, and then also get some direction.
Audience, can you give them a general location?
As I said, the footprint of.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that.
Because there was someone like this.
Yeah, so this is the road formerly known as Foothill, now Mountain View Corridor.
In front of Sunrise Meadows.
Yes, extending from Pony Express north past Murray Way, all the way up to 73 or Pioneer Crossing past Sunrise Meadows. Currently, it's 3 lanes, so we worked to widen it to 3 lanes right before the north part of Mountain View Corridor opened. Still very congested. This improved. This project will widen it to 5 lanes. So you'll have 2 lanes in each direction and a center turn lane. Also includes realigning Evans Lane and 4th North, signalizing that. So for pedestrian, reduced delay, all that stuff.
We have 5 schools in this area. So
Yes.
Lit intersection is very important to the safe walking routes for children.
So we were thinking this could cost us upwards of $5 or $6 million, with $1 million of that being the intersection. Bids came in at like 3-1. So we had 3 bids, 3-1, 3-4, and about 3-5 or 3-6. The low bid is Landmark Excavation, who is also a partner on the cemetery project. Yeah, big, all 3 groups were large, reputable bidders. So that leaves us almost a $3 million excess when we look at the infrastructure loans we took out with UDOT that we can roll over. So depending on the outcome of our community project funding and then our next application for the loan of $4 million, you know, best case scenario, we may have enough funding to do all 3 unfunded segments we talked about. But definitely, I think. Pony.
Redirect people. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So as we discussed, there are, our long-term goal is to widen Pony to 5 lanes all the way through the entire city. We have 3 unfunded segments, and so this increases that opportunity, depending on future applications and funding, to do more than we thought we could do. So exciting.
Not including the bridge.
That's not including the bridge, correct?
Correct. The
Bridge is a whole separate.
Well, the
can of
bridge is
worms.
funded, but not for.
But the bridge is funded for 4 years from now.
No, it's funded in 2026 or 7, I think.
Okay.
But what's not funded is the portion west of the bridge and east of the bridge. So widening the bridge without those portions obviously is not going to get the benefit we need.
So does that need to come back to us to approve before we start work?
So the Mountain
Or
View
award it?
corridor, because it is already in the budget and it's approved funded project in the budget, and then we've also received state funding for that, we believe that we can enter into that contract and award that contract and move forward. We wanted to let you have you be aware of that. Sometimes we bring it to you just so that you can have the opportunity to do it, but our policy allows us to do that. So we would like to move forward with that and save 2 weeks. We also, in the 3-1 bid, it does not include the price for the signalized intersection costs. We will buy those from UDOT, and we will buy those and pay for those outside of the 3-1 contract, so.
The actual poles.
Yeah, the actual
We
poles.
get a discounted rate buying those directly through the state warehouse. So
That's smart for us to do
we
that.
didn't want to pay the contractor a premium when we can get them.
So the biggest question, did we put a timeline clause in our contract?
Oh, of course, yeah. So we discussed it on Friday. They have to be done by August 8th. The goal was to get added
August
before school.
8th.
Yeah, the week before school starts.
And there's no complaining about rain?
I mean, I can't guarantee they're not going to request a change order in time, but yeah, knock on wood.
You just called a no-hitter, thank you.
So August 8th, redesign the entire intersection, signalized in 5 lanes from Pony to all the way to 73.
Which only was made possible because we squeezed in that canal extension.
That canal work,
Water
yeah.
got turned.
Which is
Correct.
fantastic. If this really happens, that's huge.
Fingers crossed, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's like, this has been one of the biggest areas.
So again, from an admin report, we just wanted to let you know that we're charging ahead. We've heard you loud and clear. We've heard the community. We're going to move forward with awarding contract and just moving forward unless you have.
Let's not be the holdup.
So Mark, on that, this is on the same topic, so if I can, hopefully residents are aware that UDOT is doing their EIS open house on next week at Lake Mountain Middle School. I believe it's on Wednesday. And a lot of residents in those areas have questions on sound walls. They can learn everything they need to at that meeting.
Yeah, that is correct. And
The experts will be there.
Yeah. I learned, and they have to, areas where sound walls are warranted, the residents have to vote to get them, or they don't get them. Right, so there's a ballot that takes place, so people need to be aware and participate.
Even if it would be done, they still have to vote.
They still have to vote for them, yes.
Yeah, they block sound and they also block views.
Right.
So they may not be a consensus.
Right,
On every opening, your sound is no longer blocking.
yeah.
To circle back on Mark's line item, so in that GL 33,4,765, you've already funded $3.5 million. So you've already appropriated funding for this project with the fiscal year. Therefore, per our purchasing policy, we can award the budget because it's under the 3.5. You've already authorized us to spend that money.
I look forward to bulldozers next week.
That's as fast as possible. I don't want them to come back and say, we slowed them down.
Yeah, I know.
so my apologies for neglecting to bring that up into the reports and circling back on that item.
Okay.
Great news.
Perfect. That brings us to the end of our policy session. We do have a work session. The council will discuss without public comment the following items. Our first one tonight is the Three Canyons Community Plan and Master Development. There's no decisions to be made tonight. It is just a work session for those who are in attendance to get more information.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to introduce the project. You've received the full recent submittal of the project for the community plan in your packets today, and we have the Larry H. Miller and Sitla team here to answer any questions that you have.
Everybody's not there, I get stopped there.
See if we can work this thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys so much for your time tonight. Just want to say we are excited to be developing in the city, and we are so excited to be partners with you guys. I think together we can create an amazing community, and it's going to be great. So we have come prepared today to ask a couple of questions. Let's see if I can get this to work. Go this way. There we go. The project name that we've selected is called Three Canyons. And the two topics we want to talk about today is just to get some clarification on the developable versus non-developable acreage. And the second one would be the proposed three-lane road section through the Mountain View Corridor right-of-way. So we'll start with the first one. So how we're calculating the developable versus non-developable land is we have 1,206 acres. If you take out the 184 acres of 30% slope and the sensitive lands, that leaves you with 1,022 acres. And out of that, you can see how we have it broken down, 940.8 for development, landfill is 16, and the right-of-way is 65.2. So that leaves us with 3,066 units. That's what we are asking for in our community plan. Do we have any questions on that? Or we have consensus of that math? Yeah.
What, are you including the landfill land?
Yes, we are.
And there's no, Jeremy, there's no issues with putting residential on top of a filled landfill?
We are not putting homes on the landfill. That would become a park.
What are you putting on it?
That would become a park.
A park?
I would clarify, without a map, I can't, obviously, I don't know where those 184, the other acres, so without a map, it's very difficult to see if there's a consensus on those areas that they're claiming or not. But I'm not an expert on building homes on the landfill, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't suggest
Expert
that.
on everything.
I mean, so
I pretend to be.
Jeremy, what?
I apologize.
what we're looking at is,
I didn't want to know that.
what we're looking at is 184 of the acres is too much slope to build on.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. You guys are more of an expert on this land than any of us really, right? Because you've been up there and stuff. And your big thing is, the thing that you're looking from us is about 16 acres of landfill. You would like to include that in your developable land so that units per acre, but make that a park.
Exactly. Yep.
So for me personally, from a work session, I mean, I used to live up there, Mary lives up there. The landfill was always gonna be maybe like a golf course or a park. I mean, so we've been talking about that for many, many years. So for me, it falls in line with the expectations that I think have been from the city, is that when those landfills finally, when the clay pits were finally done and all full of all that construction waste, we bring in some compactable soils and then we make them nice parks. And so, of course, you wouldn't want to build a house on that because it's high risk. So for me personally, I think that counting that towards your developable acreage, because the developable acreage, all of your parks and open space is included in your developable acreage.
Correct.
And so the 3 units per acre, again, that even with you adding in the 16 acres, it really wouldn't up it too much. But I think that you were really shooting for 3 units to the acre because that is a very low dense product across a lot of land. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you take the landfill out, you're at 3.2. And it's a work session, so
Yep.
we're just talking here. I hope people understand. I agree, 3 units an acre is, it's not crazy. But that does not mean that there's 3 units an acre everywhere, just so
No.
people understand. You may have areas of 20
Higher
units.
and lower, yeah.
And you may have areas of 1 unit an acre.
Well, we don't have to allow 20 units to the acre.
I know, but I'm just using that as an example. It's.
But like along Mountain View corridor,
It gives the developer the opportunity to move density around.
like next to the
And you,
freeway.
you want to put denser products next to heavier corridors, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just, I think Sarah has a clarification that we want to make, just so that we're completely transparent, council, on the calculations here. Go ahead, Sarah.
So I think part of the request is an acknowledgement that this would involve an exception. So the Title 19 has a specific definition about what sensitive lands are. And I don't know if that factors into your discussion or not. So, but I would like to just make you aware of it because I think that you may want to know about it in your discussion. So it says sensitive lands and natural features include canyons and slopes in excess of 30%, ridgelines, natural drainage channels, streams or other natural features, wetlands, floodplains, landslide-prone areas, detention or retention areas, debris basins, geological sensitive areas. And so one element in here is they are asking not to count the drainage channels because they want to use those as recreational amenities. And then the other one was the detention basins. And so I think at this point, we don't know exactly how those will be used.
Interesting.
But
How's
from
the
a technical
how's the
standpoint.
drainage a recreational amenity?
Well, and the applicant will have to answer that because at this point,
Okay,
it's
fine.
conceptual in their plan. We don't have those details.
Okay.
But we just wanted to be very clear that, sensitive lands is defined slightly different than the way they're calculated.
Okay.
To quickly answer that question, Councilmember Karn, I think what they're proposing is to go even wider. So you'd have a portion of that would convey water and you would not recreate. And they were proposing, I believe, to go even wider, and there could be green linear parks using those drainage corridors as a location.
Yeah, view sheds, trails, exactly.
Okay.
Similar to what you see up in
Not terrible.
Foothill Boulevard, up in,
Correct.
yeah.
The point Sarah is making, though, is even that portion that's conveying water plus the 2 foot 3/4 or engineering center required has not been, it appears has not been deducted from the development. I can clarify that. That's what it sounds like.
Because what they're saying is they want to make it developable by making it a park, where we say that's sensitive land, so that would be part of that ongoing conversation if we're okay with making a linear park off of a drainage channel. Okay, Tippy's right, yeah.
Yeah.
If there's let's just say hypothetically, there's a 20-foot width that needs to convey water. If they want to add 20 more feet, we would not, our code would require that they remove the 20 feet that conveys water from development. We would always let them count the extra. If they want to add 20 more feet for green space, they can include that as well.
Yeah, so basically taking the drainage channels and making them amenities. That's how we would
Are
be.
these drainages the ones that were
Issues before.
full during the floods a few years ago?
Some of them,
Yeah.
because they're alluvial.
Don't say it.
Start it, don't.
Don't.
Generally,
Well, the thing is they're gonna be putting detention basins and putting a lot of blockage up above, so.
so again, I think the main point being, staff would probably come up with a larger set of land numbers than what you see here, because there are areas such as areas that need to convey water that we would deduct from development. You're deducting away for.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I would like to see the acreage on that type of stuff that we're asking for an exception, because if it's, whatever, 100 acres, or, which I doubt it's that
It
large.
takes it from 3 to 8, then that's not a problem. Yeah.
Right, because, and then, it's still 3 units per acre, but that would create a much more dense product.
I mean, there are at least obviously,
Parks, I get what you're saying, yeah.
per the project
Well, the
name, there
houses would be
are,
much more
The houses would be
concentrated.
dense.
If you're, I don't know what the acreage is, I have no idea, I haven't gone and measured the latest alluvial fan. But we just need to see the quantity of acreage that's being applied for exception requests.
just per the project name, there are at least 3 major drainages, 3 canyons
I-
that are on the project, and potentially more, but at least 3 major ones that, in theory, we would deduct that acreage from the development.
We have somebody here who understands drainage and big pipes, that we've had to do in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
So obviously, we can move water when we need to, but
Yeah.
you might catch Chriselle if
Yeah,
you don't know
Chriselle,
her.
yeah.
You can say, don't do it, don't try and try and put a huge tunnel and have a bunch of water go through your development.
Yeah, and just for reference purposes, when we say that the 30% slope on the mountainside, we didn't go through with a fine tooth comb and say this section isn't 30%, but this section is. We just kind of, if we want to get technical, we can, but I feel like we just kind of said, you know what, here's where we're at. I think together we can make it happen, and I think it's all going to pencil out just fine. So it's going to be amazing. I just wanted to make sure that we all have just a general consensus that this is the direction that we are going in the community plan. We're all on the same page.
Give or take, it's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, up or down, but 3 units to the acre, 3,066 units, that's what we're asking for in the community plan. Yes, I see head nods. That was okay. Yeah.
Well, again, for me, I'm not going to say like I'm on consensus here, because I need to see what that acreage looks.
Sure.
Because, 3 units per acre, that's great. That doesn't include roads or other things like that. So if you're thinking about developable property, maybe it's 6. And then if you factor another couple hundred acres in that, and the drainage, if we allow that as an exception, it could take it to 12. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say I'm in consensus when I don't have the information.
'cause
But
develop-
conceptually, if it's a little bit, that makes sense to me. But if we're hundreds of acres, that's,
When we're talking about developable acres, that, you gotta put roads and parks and everything.
Roads are included in
Well-
developable acreage.
So
Yes.
the sensitive lands are what are backed out, and what's missing from this analysis is those drainage channels, is what it appears to be.
Okay.
And their request is to include the 16 acres from the landfill as for density purposes, but to use it as a park. But again, for development purposes, we just say, what's the developable acreage, relative to that? So
65.2 for Mountain View, the full width.
That's from the latest. It's actually gone up. It was 63, and then UDOT came back, Avenue Consultant came back and said, we need to make it a little, so now it's 65.
Your property, not the middle.
This is just across our section, yeah.
Jeremy,
Yep.
what's the full width? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It's like
400 something feet?
40, but then it gets bigger at the interchanges.
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh,
it
it's not
380 and then wider at the interchanges?
Yeah.
And it was 450
And trails,
something
yeah.
where we were doing the frontage roads up north.
Okay.
So that's approximate.
The frontage roads?
We don't carry frontage roads this far south. They end pretty much at Larry
many-
or Grandview.
How many miles of Mountain View is in your property?
That is a great question. Let me see if I can tell you right now.
All of it that's in their property.
Yeah. It goes the whole thing.
When you go south of the frontage roads, it's not a freeway, it's like Redwood Road, right?
So
So let me just jump into the next slide. That might help. Is that great? So, what I hear from you, Councilmember Wilden, is that you would like to see the drainage channel acreage represented in the community plan, correct?
well, what I'm saying is when we're being asked yes or no, I don't know if it really has to be in the village plan.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you a technical thing. But like if you're asking for an exception,
Right.
what we'd normally do, I need to know what the impact is. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Like,
Yeah, it does.
if we don't know the impact, I got to follow like everything to the T.
You got it. Okay.
16?
Sounds great. All right, so,
To the question of the Mountain View corridor, there's a gap, there's a section in the north that's about 0.6 miles, and then there's a gap where that goes down through the Jacob Trans property in the south of 0.9. So a total of 1.5, 0.6 on the north and 0.9 on the south approximately.
can you guys see that exhibit? Does that show? Okay. So the section on this is the clarification, and though I wanted to talk about this one, it's a big deal. So We have proposed in the community plan a 77-foot right-of-way with no sidewalks, city street standards, in the Mountain View corridor as a temporary road until the freeway comes through. And you can see that it goes from Lariat all the way down to Village Parkway in this exhibit, which two sections of this aren't even on our project.
What page are you on here?
That's the very last page
In
the packet.
page 50?
Yes.
All right,
I think page 8. It says,
page 8.
yeah, it's the very last one in the exhibit.
Okay. Mine has 50 pages.
So you're giving the easement for the full width to when it gets built out.
Correct.
You're proposing we build like the equivalent of what we've done before, like a frontage road type width.
Correct. And to Mark's point, the frontage road, just so everybody's clear, I'm not sure everybody's aware of that, but the Lariat, from Lariat south, there is no frontage. So the
Right, it
frontage
goes
road
to the
stops.
right, yeah.
It goes, and then it will go right into the freeway eventually. So that's how they have it going on.
But what you're proposing is you're not gonna build a freeway because there's no freeway north. You're proposing the width similar to what was done as a frontage road. And then when more development happens south or whatever happens, you're gonna leave the easement to come back and build it into a full freeway.
Correct. So that at that time, we will donate that to UDOT at that time. But,
So you're meeting your impact,
right. But yes,
you're not upsizing. And if we choose to upsize it into a full freeway, then we would need to get into a development, a reimbursement agreement, all of that.
correct. Because right now,
Meeting your requirements.
right. And right now, when the freeway does come through, that road will just be thrown away. So that money will just be gone because it won't be built to UDOT standards. Correct.
Well, and we don't know how long it's going to be. It could be 20 years, which would be the full useful life of, the road, being built now. But we are looking for that cross-section to continue the whole
We're
length.
looking for the easement, which is.
Right, and the easement as well, yeah, so, but as far as, timing goes, UDOT is doing the EIS right now, and they're studying.
We wouldn't build a freeway down here when there's no freeway north. I mean,
Correct.
Literally, there's no.
Yeah, and north of here, we've got the frontage road. We've built only one side of the frontage road, not even the second side. So in theory, like 2100, the next phase of development would build the frontage road along the west side, and we'd preserve that center corridor for future.
But ultimately, what this is doing, though, is creating another north-south
Absolutely.
access much further south than we are currently. So when we have had evacuations, there's been some real problems. Karin, you actually mentioned something, I think it's good, maybe just because it's a work session. We need to start looking at our code. He mentioned this down at ULCT, is looking at our code where we can make Redwood Road only all lanes northbound. And then we make, like, for in case if there's an emergency. I don't think we have that kind of discussion, and I thought that was a really great idea.
I've already assigned that to Chief Campbell, and he's going to start working on that, and hopefully bring back a draft of that shortly. Thank you.
Because just to have another, I was stuck in an evacuation years ago, and I lived in the neighborhood right there. To have had something like this would have been amazing.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So just so I make sure I'm clear, we are okay with the alignment that we have currently inside the Mountain View right-of-way with a 77-foot right-of-way on the road with no sidewalks either, with that cross-section, city standards cross-section.
I want to, just for clarity, just because we're reviewing it here,
Yeah,
doesn't mean I'm okay.
okay.
I'm learning.
That's great. This is, questions, that's great.
I think what you're really saying is, do you have any direction outside of what you're saying that you need to consider?
Correct.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because when we first started having conversations a couple years ago, the council had said we wanted the entire roadway cross-section dedicated early on. What I'm hearing them say is they would build the 75 or the 77-foot, but and I heard Ginger say earlier that they would finish dedicating that to UDOT later in the process. And so I guess the clarification that I would be looking for from the council is do you want the entire dedication now, or are you willing to take part of that dedication now and the other part later?
What's the difference to them if they dedicate it now or later?
It would remove it from the tax rolls if it's dedicated to us now.
Well, I would also clarify this, the density transfer discussion, right? If they sell it to UDOT later, but they're also using that acreage as developable acreage and getting density, that's a different discussion than.
Right.
We did this before. We actually did this with Wildflower, where we didn't allow them, it had to be ag level, and I don't think that's the intent of Larry Miller, is to get a upzone and then charge a premium price to let, but we could put that into contract.
Right, the first
Have to capture
slide
that.
did not deduct the acreage from that 3,000 unit.
Correct.
Which is essentially letting them then transfer that density off of it. And so to go back to kind of a specific, and it's just, we want to make sure that we get it right in the development agreement. And that is, does the council expect the full Mountain View corridor right-of-way to be dedicated right at the beginning as part of the founding documents, or are you comfortable waiting for later?
I guess the question is why wouldn't they if it gets it off the tax roll?
It's the units per acre, I think.
Well,
Well, it's a couple different things. So let's walk through this for a second. So it's the 3 units per acre, that would be correct. But the $7.5 million that it's going to take to build this section of the road, we would need some other exceptions in the project in order to be able to fund this section, because 2 sections of this road aren't even on our property. So this project has over $243 million worth of infrastructure currently. And so in order to make this happen, we would need some exceptions somewhere so that we can make this work together with all of us. So we would dedicate it at that time. So if we dedicate at that time, if we put in the money that we'd be paying, we would dedicate the section of the road at the time that we were building, and then UDOT would get the road, the rest of the width that they need when the time comes.
So are you looking at using those as like transfer credits, to offset taxes and other things, taxable purposes?
For like impact fees, is that what you're asking for?
I'm actually asking more on the tax side. Are you going to be using it as a tax write-off, as a dedication along the way?
We weren't thinking that, no.
Okay, so that is another tool that
Yeah.
you could consider.
We could.
As far as road impact fees and things, again, are you looking for the city to reimburse you the value of the land?
Yes, we would. We would be looking for a reimbursement for the part of the road that's not on our project, yes. And that also comes to another question is, do we have secured easements for the road to the north? I know that's not city ground, and so that was just the question. If we are doing that, is that something the city is willing to get those, or how does that work?
Something to take back.
Yeah, to the north of our project,
So
between
I'm
Lariat.
a little confused, dedicate now, dedicate later. I guess that doesn't matter as much to me, as long as we're not giving density credit.
Yeah, no double dipping is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Perfect.
Well, and the land that's not necessary for your project, obviously you would need to be compensated, whether it's
Right.
density transfer, UDOT buying the land out, with their core preservation funds. I think one of the reasons why you're holding on to it is so that they will actually come and pay you for the core preservation fund.
And they'll actually come, right?
Actually show up.
Yeah, we want them to show up. We don't want them to just stick with this road, yeah.
Well, I'm confused. So
Uh-huh.
we were talking about earlier the calculation of like the density.
Correct.
Which was the Mountain View corridor, which is this alignment we're talking about here. So why are we talking about it again? Like, are you talking about double transferring density? I mean, if we
No.
agree on the calculation up front, I
I think they were just trying to clarify, like, the timing of when that dedication would come in. I think also, too, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't want to say, okay, you're going to get 3 units to the acre on that 65.2 acres, but then you're going to turn around and sell that section to UDOT. That's not our intent. Our
Well-
intent would be to dedicate the right-of-way to UDOT.
And I guess
Kevin?
the question I'm looking for is, do you want that dedicated day one, or do you care if it's dedicated later from a transaction standpoint?
I'm okay with the dedication. When that happens, I don't care. I want in the contract saying that this easement is preserved.
So in essence, what we would do is, as they bring in their site plan, we would just
Hold them
basically
to the,
zone that piece of ground ag, essentially, so it preserves it as the ag value.
and that this is where the Mountain View
Yeah.
Road will come through. Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
As long as we're protected on, because I don't want to pull another neighboring city where they don't preserve, and then they have to come back and take out houses.
Correct.
Can I just address something really quick? The question was asked about impact fees, and so so far, we've been working through some development agreement drafts, and in those development agreement drafts, the impact fee law says that we are responsible for reimbursement of system improvements but not project improvements. So what that means with Mountain View Corridor is If any of that road is required for their project to address the needs of the project,
They need to do it.
which probably will be the case depending on a traffic study, that's not eligible for reimbursement. Now, if it goes from the project size to system size, that's where
Or we've upsized
that's
it.
where we can negotiate that and discuss that reimbursement. But the project size is not reimbursable.
And it's undetermined at this point as to whether the 77-foot cross-section would be a project improvement or a system improvement.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah, good point, Mark.
Okay.
So where did we land? Just making sure I understand. We landed on, we're good with the alignment, correct?
Well,
Yes?
I guess,
We're
like,
good with you coming back with an alignment.
Yes.
We're not approving it.
Oh, no, I'm just want to make sure
Oh.
I'm clear when we're coming back.
specific alignment, how does that line up with our master plan?
It's exactly what Avenue Consultants on behalf of UDOT has outlined for this area.
Great.
Yeah, yes.
We need it.
Yep.
One other thing too, it really is not relevant as far as whether improvements are off-site or on-site. Off-site improvements are legal to be, off-site improvements, we can legally exact those if it's needed to meet the needs of the project. So I just want to make sure the council
Say that
knows
again?
what the law is.
What-
So one of the things that that Ginger brought up was off-site versus on-site
The
improvements.
freeway that doesn't touch.
We can require off-site improvements if it's needed for the project. And that's
section in
basically action
between.
law.
I would argue it's very needed for the project.
Yeah.
Well, but could they access Redwood Road through the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all part of the
A
discussion.
transportation study that would be able to show that.
But it's not automatically assumed that off-site improvements
Right.
are required to be
Not a
reimbursed.
guarantee that they're going to get credits for those. is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So this is something that we just need to, like Mark suggested, work through the MDA on, correct?
Through the MDA and obviously the traffic study would be one of the things towards to make the determination. Now, one of the challenges that we have, and I know that there's citizens here that are concerned about traffic impacts. And so, obviously, from a city perspective, having this road connect to the north early on, especially as they start building, this southern part of their project, we want to make sure that there is a second route so that we're mitigating the traffic impacts on the existing communities. And again, those are things that we're going to have to work out as part of what those look like. But
Do we have all the
again,
easements to build the connection?
we don't currently have the easements through, say, the Jacobs property to the north. And even, there's one or two properties to the south that we don't have the easements. But one of the things that I think is a viable alternative is for us to go and try and get corridor preservation funds from MAG and others to try and help do that.
Get
So
ahead of
to
it.
Ginger's point, yes, this is an expensive project, but if we can, use the resources that are available to try and maybe pick up the land using corridor preservation funds and probably acquire the entire corridor right now with those corridor preservation funds, that would be the most economical use of that. And again, it would defer some of their initial costs, which is, I think, part of their request. But at the same time, it would make a lot of sense for us to try and lock in that whole corridor. And to that end, having that whole corridor dedicated across the entire property would be very helpful in making the argument with MAG and others, saying we are trying to preserve this 380-foot cross-section across all of these properties.
And that,
At the end of the summer, the EIS is published and finished. That's when we can use corridor preservation funds?
Jeremy, how do corridor preservation funds work with EISs and things in place?
Yeah, they can, I mean,
So the EIS will be published at the end of summer.
they can use quarter measurements at any time. The EIS gives them a little more assurance that they're buying the right area. There's not necessarily that I'm aware of a hard and fast rule.
Okay.
There may be a preference that, to have at least something, but this is a unique road in that we've been getting road before there was an EIS, which is quite unusual.
Yeah.
They've already begun quarter preservation, for instance, in Brixton Park and to the north. They've already been buying right away, even though the EIS isn't done.
Well, and even if, and I think that the whole dedicating and stuff, if UDOT shows up with money, I don't think they're gonna turn away money for full dedication of.
Actually, it's not that much money. It's not that great.
But the thing is then, I mean, if they're wanting to buy it now, and I'm sure it's something that can be in the contract, in the MDA that says, if core preservation funds are available and they want to have it fully dedicated through this section, I'm sure that we can work through that.
Well, and as you recall, above Fox Hollow, we've already got those dedications from those property owners. So we've got it
Have a couple
stubbed.
gaps.
There's a gap and a gap but then this project is right in between.
There's about half a mile. So that section on Jacobs Ranch between their two pieces, we've already built Lariat. We already have that right of way. So that missing gap from where Lariat, where it ties into Lariat south is about half a mile that we get that. And then you could have a continuous road.
Okay.
Great. Sounds great.
Got some
Okay.
good feedback.
You guys are awesome. This is exactly the direction we needed. And thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on that calculation number, Stephen, I think one of the things that is kind of critical for us from a critical path process is to determine what that number is. And again, the 1022 number and the 3066 number that they're proposing is kind of important for the development agreement, and the context of the development agreement. Obviously, by, committing to what that number is and coming down to that final number, that's ultimately what's going to be the basis of the pro forma for all of the financing and other. So I think that's an important question. We don't know what the number is. You mentioned hundreds of acres. I don't believe that.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so we can certainly look at that and try and get that information back to the council as soon as possible to kind of keep that conversation moving.
He's going to submit his expense report for his yardstick when he goes measures the alluvial fan.
I'm not gonna go walk those fans.
I don't suggest.
No, I mean, from my standpoint, Mark, I'm not gonna bicker over 5 units or anything like that. That's not worth it,
But you will for 10.
maybe 11, I don't know. But I just, that's my feedback. Whenever we're being asked to grant an exception that's out, or a variance, or whatever, Kevin, I'm supposed to call it, I got it wrong, I'm sure. That, like, what is the impact? What are we being asked that is above and beyond our code?
Sure, that's fair.
And I think philosophically, one of the big challenges, and as a community, we see the value of this road extending north to south and having that second access out of the community. We've got it to Lariat. Closing this gap is strategically very important. And part of that question is are you willing to make concessions for that 3066 number, or whatever it ends up being with that channel math in there? Are you willing to make that concession to get some of the road improvements and other, other benefits that would come from that project? And that's part of the calculus on entitlements and how we move forward.
I mean, I think ultimately, any density that's ever come into the city, and Jim and my entire tenure and everyone else on here, there has to be a huge added value to the city to justify any kind of density. And at 3 units the acre, really not asking for density, but I mean, obviously there are going to be higher, denser areas and stuff. But big projects, always, there needs to be some positive impact to the city. I mean, Pony Express is one of the huge things that we have. I mean, we have Pony Express being expanded this summer extensively. And we talked about potentially being able to even do more because we have money being freed up from between Pony Express. And so these are the kinds of things that we're looking for. Is Mountain View is a huge thing, like other infrastructure, tanks to fix water pressure issues in North Jacobs, the west side of Jacobs Ranch. They've always complained they have too much pressure, and then when you get down, there's not enough pressure. And people complain about their sprinkler systems. Yeah. This kind of stuff and this kind of infrastructure helps balance these things out. Not just roads, but I mean, even sewer. I mean, pressure. I mean, all of these things benefit when you have these developments that come in. And we will be very, very vigilant, and you know this, and we're going to expect a very good transportation study because we need to see how all of it is affected internally, and then how is it affecting going north. Because as much as I love our new Mountain View frontage road that we have between Lariat and Pony, I sure wish a lot more people in the south would use it.
That's
because
right.
they're still going down to Redwood Road. I mean, in the morning, I was there this morning and I was cram-packed and I thought, you know what, I have a little bit of leeway. So I went up Grandview Boulevard and went up to Mountain View, and there were 6 cars. Wow. There were probably 600 cars on Redwood Road, but people weren't willing to take Grandview or Lariat and go up onto Mountain View and to take it north. And so when people complain to me about how busy Redwood Road is, I always ask them now, I says, do you take Mountain View? Do you go up, do you go west to go north, or do you still go east to go north? They're like, well, I'm still going Pioneer Crossing, and it adds time. And I said, But if everyone helped each other out, we would have a lot less traffic. If everyone took, you're on the west side and you went up to Lariat. So this is going to be great because it's not really a gap. I mean, this is taking it way further south because there's nothing further south of you that we're trying to connect to.
Right.
So
Per your point, Councilmember, you guys required Wander to provide the full right-of-way dedication, and the only compensation was their density, in addition to other things they provided it for that entitlement. Now, they dedicate to the city in phases, but each phase, there was no additional compensation beyond their development agreement. And that's, would be consistent, you know, with what we've done successfully in negotiating that with other developers.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, guys.
Councilman Wadman?
Presentation was good, and I appreciate it. But, and I think you've heard it, we've all heard it, just polling the customers and a lot of emails, a lot of attendance here, concern about this project. And as attractive as it is, the concern still is traffic, infrastructure. I would say the schools as well, the burden that it puts on our education. So as we continue these talks, I hope we have more details about those and how it's not going to be a burden on our current citizens. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, work session item 2, Wildflower Village Plan 5 and Wildflower 4th Community Plan Amendment.
And Mayor and Council, we have Chriselle Travis here on behalf of DAI to present about Wildflower Village Plan 5. I'll get this.
Some of my pictures are too small, so I blew them up so that you can see them. You're not going to see them on the screen.
That's old school, Chriselle. That is old school.
PowerPoint before PowerPoint.
Can we just still them, Tercel? Can we just still them to look at for a minute?
Fit that in your wallet.
That was freaking funny.
This is showing the warehouses.
Yeah.
That's too smart.
Put the warehouse behind. They're showing how it's going to be.
Oh, the flyover for the.
Right, and then this is just showing the warehouse without.
That will block the camera.
Back to the warehouse without the flyover.
Hey, Chippy, that's gonna block the camera of the, just put it
But the
right in front of
trees are-
Chriselle.
Don't show any trees in 30 years.
I mean,
Where is this?
that's the intersection of Mount Pioneer Crossing.
That, by the way,
There.
We can't get that one extended. I do.
Sell trees are a little.
Otherwise, people will ask me questions.
Your trees are 40-year trees.
Star at maturity.
Right.
You give us the coefficient of settlement and the landfill of 3 feet deep.
This been,
That big of a bridge
these elevations been confirmed at the top.
Yeah.
in the concepts, right?
I mean, it's the idea. Yeah, there will be, of course.
What is this been?
That's the throwing the flyover, showing it
Sorry,
the flyover.
wanted to commandeer those.
That was a very
He's just saying
unproductive.
that he's just saying that.
Yeah.
We're like, what did they, I think they got us nothing.
Chriselle,
Yeah.
We expect a floating.
what you're saying on the picture, so our recorders.
So we can just walk through it whenever we.
No, I think we kind of, without being too aggressive, we kind of.
You promised a floating bridge. So Chriselle, you promised a floating bridge in this picture.
Yes, I did.
Is that how much it is?
That thing's just a bugger.
It defies
Buyers or
laws
something.
of gravity.
That's the last
And
one.
Chriselle, we can.
The church was like, I need like something.
Someone shoved that up in there so hard it's.
150,000.
I don't even
0.7. That's what I mean. It's possible.
I know what's going on.
No, there's just. I'm like, it is. But, you know, when you're saying it's like getting $500 or $600, it's like, no.
Just put one right in front of Kevin, have him hold it.
To me.
So the acreage, there's a.
Should I just do it from right here?
You can go from there, yeah. It is you. Oh, no, you're next.
Oh. Did he say we can figure it? I already what? Oh, so then we just said, we're going to start our work session. Okay, we're going to bring everybody back together and start our work session. That's okay? Well, it's okay because I said that. No, now I'm going to, now I'll turn the time over to Chriselle. I'll give her 15.
I can talk pretty fast.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're supposed to get us started.
I don't have to do that for this part.
Okay. Well, I am happy to be back here in your city. It's been a while. I'm excited to be working with DAI and have a new scope of work. They've been doing this village plan and wildfire for quite some time. I was brought in to help get this across the finish line. So let's talk about this tonight and see what we can do to answer your questions. I have gone back to watch the denial meeting at the suggestion of staff and many people. So I have looked at that. And when I listened to it, here were the issues that I heard. There's concerns with the grading. There's too much of one type. The heights are a concern. The architecture was okay, but there needed to be some refinement. The buildings are too large. There's a fear for distribution centers. The plan needs to be perfected. So my village plan, my 100 and whatever pages, needs to represent what you really are approving. So in your packet and what got sent out tonight, you should have seen a red line bubble plan that shows everything that's been changed. Most of those bubbles reflect the fact that when we were back here a year ago, there was 60 more acres in there that had a lot more square footage on it. That's been removed. So Village Plan 6 will come to you separately. We're just looking at Village Plan 5. The new document deals just with the 58 acres that are Village Plan 5. And what we're proposing in that 58 acres is still office warehouse. I forgot my slides. So we've got Village Plan 5 located right here. 5 buildings is what we've got for right now. You've seen this before. Just for clarification, these are our uses. Village Plan 2 is shown on this map as well. Everything in Village Plan 2 was classified and zoned for CC. But what you see on the map is the uses that are being intended to be diversified and not the zone. So the blue and it's really hard to see, there's an aqua color as well. So there's the teal and an aqua. I don't know if the laser, but we're proposing one of the changes to help us diversify and to help is to split building 4, which was one of the things that was asked for. When we split building 4, which is the one to the very bottom of the screen, we lost about 60,000 square feet of office warehouse there. So we have a 4 and a 4A. We still have buildings 1, 2, and 3 in our design. So here you can see very clearly what we're proposing for our square footages and the sizes. One of the concerns that came through was that the largeness and the size of the building was a concern for distribution and fulfillment centers. And I know that the office warehouse zone has been decommissioned, I guess, from your zoning code. And heavy commercial and light industrial have kind of taken its place. So to help with that, we're proposing, and there will be language in a clean version that will come before you when we appear for a vote, that would propose new language. And this is the language that we're proposing. So I'll give you just a second to read through that. But the highlight is that we would be adding heavy commercial, which would be classified for building 4 and 4A. In that, we're asking for a permitted use, because it was a permitted use in the 2019 code, but we want to hold ourselves to the 2025 code for heavy commercial. The only exception that we would need is that we could do the hardware home improvement retail and the light manufacturing as defined in our current, in the current proposal. The next portion of that concern for distribution was that the buildings are large and there was rumor about, was the dirty word. We're not talking to Amazon, but what we've tried to do is to define that buildings 1, 2, and 3, which are the largest buildings in the site plan, could only be leased to a single user for 75% of the building. We're asking for 2 users per building on buildings 1, 2, and 3, a single user possibility in buildings 4 and 4A.
Does that mean, or work sessions? Does that mean you'll only lease to 1 and 2, or you could break those up?
We could bring that up, but the very minimum would be that only 75, that if one user came in and wanted the whole 169 square feet, couldn't do that.
I have a hard
69,000.
visualizing 170,000 square feet.
Well, so
Tell me what Costco is?
About 20,000 square feet more than Costco.
20,000 more than a Costco.
This building plus Costco.
Okay.
So 75% of the building is actually in Amazon. The building in American Fork, the Amazon building there is 150,000 square feet. So if one user came in and is using 75% of the floor of the building, that's still almost Amazon size.
So if you read further into the definition, we're limiting. So the prohibited uses in the village plan includes large-scale bulk distribution and fulfillment facilities designed for high-volume, rapid turnover operations such as those using a cross-dock configuration, facilities primarily engineered for the receipt, sorting, redistribution of goods across the multiple transport vehicles, designed with truck docking positions located on multiple sides of the building with, rather than a single side. All of our buildings are single-sided dock loading. We're not proposing
Full
any.
distribution center off of.
So this is actually one of my big sticking points. I mean, if you listen to it, and so with that kind of clarification in the definition, I'm okay with 2 units, 2 occupants in your bigger buildings, and then 1, because really it's 2, because it's 2 buildings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So 1 per your smaller one.
Yeah.
With this clarification.
Okay.
Because it meets my concern. It was the truck route, right? It was the
Right.
number of trucks coming in and out and all of the traffic that this is I mean, we're going to be spending millions of dollars to try and fix the traffic in this area, and I didn't want to have 400 truck, trips and things. So I'm comfortable, like, I'm one of 5 here, and
Great.
with the mayor 6, with that language. So when this comes forward, you won't get pushback from me with 2 for the big buildings at the 75% for any one user, plus the clarification.
And I got one question. Sorry. 75%, so they can't take up 75% of one building and take up 75% of another building, right? Is that possible?
In theory, they could, because
Okay.
they're separate buildings. It only restricts a building at a time.
So they could have 75%, 75%, 75%.
So,
It could, but it's not likely
Okay.
that that would happen.
Okay.
and I was going to bring that up, but thank you for bringing that up. I think I'd like to clarify that in the final version, that you can't have a multiple unit, especially those 2 that back up each other, and like, I'm going to grab 75 here and 75 there.
Or one company, yeah.
Right.
You get 150 for one company.
Right, not one occupant that can
Right.
maintain 75% of all the different buildings.
So that would be like a cross-lease
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
of 2 buildings with
I
one.
mean, it's unlikely they'd want to do that.
Well, and your
but-
code restricts it technically.
Right, and that's our hope, is that this definition wouldn't allow somebody to do that. That there
Right.
wouldn't be the ability for them to go from the dock on the south to the dock on the north. Right,
Restriction.
right.
Like deja vu from 11 years ago.
Cross-talk or is cross-talk just when you go through? So is that, I mean, we can add it.
And,
There, maybe just look at cleaning the language so that Stephen and Chris and I were all feeling more comfortable.
right. So our understanding of crossdock, like Sarah has pointed out, and the Wadsworth team is here to correct me if I get it wrong, but it's a building where a truck pulls in on the front, unloads their load. They then process everything inside the building while they're moving it across the floor and out the back door. Not from a dock on the north in an open parking lot to another. That wouldn't function for a transfer of goods.
Okay.
Yeah, if we just add it.
I don't think that it functions like that, and we should be fine with that.
Okay. Building heights, let's get to it. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so this is just further clarification on the leasable spaces we already talked about. One of the concerns was, what are the people that live in that area going to be seeing? So this is a 3rd-mile radius, which is as close to those units that we get for our location. And this is what they would see. Part of the concerns in March of 2024 was the view. So what you're seeing here is the 2024 landscaping plan. We identified that hillside and this view on the southeast as sensitive to your downtown views and these neighbors. And in the new plan, I don't know that you've seen it. If you've had discussions with Nate, you may have, but we've intensified the landscaping, and it'll be on pages 701 through 710, so you can double check me. But what we did was have, and these are at maturity, so this will take time, but what we did have was take the actual plans that we had put into our village plan and plant them in front of this so that you could see what the view is going to be in maturity.
That's maturity.
30 years.
60% of them are gonna die, and
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Including 60% of the
I
people.
mean, I appreciate the additional foliage. I mean, if there's language in there that talks about if trees are dying, how many times you can replace it. I mean, you know that our trees don't do great here, you know.
Right, and hopefully we're using, there's a list of plants in there that have been vetted, so
Yeah.
hopefully those are
Don't
trees.
use pine trees.
Would you approve artificial trees?
Maybe if they're cell towers.
Those are towers. Okay, so the next piece of the puzzle was the grading and the heights of the buildings and the way that it relates to the land.
View of the other way, because the concern wasn't looking up to the mountain. it
So
was
we'll get
down.
there. So there's more views. That was
Okay.
just mostly a highlight on landscaping and that we've addressed that edge. Part of what we've done in this grading plan. So this was the 2024 map. Part of the feedback that we got from staff was that there was a lot of information. Couldn't really see what was happening and how it worked. So we've modified that to be a little simpler. We've also, and I'll slip back, but so you can see this. So that red highlighted balloon area was the slope that you were seeing in that first picture. We've terraced that and we've extended it out to the property line so that it's a much gentler slope. We get some areas where we can have some landscaping and it will soften that edge a bit. So back to my grading plan. There's a lot of information on here, but what you see is the green area on this map represents the closest to existing grade. So anything in that green area is a 0 to 10 feet of elevation change. So about 60% of the site, as we've done that, has been taken up in that and being used. If you notice that all of the corners and edges of the building are set in that area. And we had to do that so that we could connect to the existing roadways and design a roadway that would go out and connect to Mountain View Corridor and meet with your city codes. So part of the issue with the grading and the balance of the site was dictated by conditions that we couldn't change.
Our road alignment.
Yes. And the site has a natural 65-foot fall in elevation from where you see that pink corner down to the bottom edge, the east edge. So there is a lot of grade happening. The little red spot that you see there, that's our major cut. So we will be cutting into the hillside to remove that, and then we will place it in the blue areas. Those are our fill spots. And overall, this site achieves a balance with the grades and the things that are there. We won't have to be importing a lot of fill. We will work very diligently to hit the elevations that we've represented. And that's what's dictating it. And because these are large buildings and they have docks, it's not like we can step them to try and make it happen. It has to be all one plane for the development. So it isn't ideal for the site, but we want you guys to know that we have tried our very best to work with the conditions that were given, to work with the natural grade of the land. And as I said, that green area represents, for the most part, existing grade and how we've worked with that. And then part of what staff's recommendation was, because there was a concern with the height, we do have some cut areas, which it's really hard to see across here because it's so small, that are about 24 and a half feet tall. So as this map, what this map shows is about 1,600 feet. So if you follow that colored line along the edge of, that's the edge of slope next to the buildings, it's about 1,600 feet in distance. And then we've transfigured that down at the bottom to interpret what those cuts are. If I took that and sliced it right there, that's what you would see. It goes from about 5 feet up to the highest point through the middles. And the change in color represents the change in direction. And on average, we're at 17.6 feet of fill in that area. That is the spot, if you remember, that had all the blue on the last map. And staff had recommended that we be between 15 and 18 feet. So we're hoping and would love your feedback on the grading. I passed out for you. You have a blow up of these, of those details so that you can see how it moves across. We took a cross section from east to west through the buildings and from north to south so that you could see the most extreme and the least and how they relate to both Mountain View Corridor, that sensitive slope space, and our buildings across the site. So hopefully, you got to flip it over to get the other side.
Sorry, there's another side?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I want to add is, I think that these are accurate representations from the locations they're taken. The comment I want to add is the location of the intersection and the contour lines and the distance from the property line. So I just want to bring to your attention that if you were to take a cross-section from the lowest point at the intersection, you would also have the natural grade that's happening off the site, which is roughly an additional 12 feet.
So still, that 25 feet that we are concerned about still happens because from the point of view, is what you're saying, is that the buildings still are going to look higher up.
Well, we've heard that at the intersection, it'll go 25 feet up and 25 feet down in terms, of when all of that happens. So I think it does depend on viewing angle because when you consider the lowest point and then 12 feet and then their grade change, and then the 25 higher than the current location, it's just something to think about when you're looking at number 3 here, and that those cross sections were taken at locations that a little bit more parallel to the grade, but maybe not necessarily the lowest point. So I want to bring that to your attention so it doesn't ever come across like it got missed in the
Can I
future.
ask a clarifying question?
Our intersection or no?
Yes. Picture 3, so let me go back. So view 3 is where you see that 3. That's where that camera came through. And I've got, so this is existing at construction completion. So you can see, like I said, they're kind of really small. That's the view from the neighborhoods on the on the west, sorry. And then you have with the mature trees at the bottom. So
Chriselle, can I ask a question? And I'm trying to clarify this because I think it's an important point. Have you changed the grading plan since the last time it was in front of the council?
Yes. We didn't lower the roads or the buildings, but we've done what we can to drop across parking lots and to terrace and to tier.
So you have not lowered the road and you have not lowered the
Can't
buildings?
lower the road, and I haven't lowered the buildings because they have to have a level surface.
Okay. I'm just wanting to be very clear that part of the ask was that those not be
Right,
as,
correct.
as high as that. And so you're proposing changes that does not fundamentally change what the council was objecting to last meeting.
But I think part of what didn't get understood was that on that map where it was a heat map, we've set those locations according to existing grade. The corners of each one of those buildings are set there, and we don't really have any other choice. And so while we recognize that it's a valid concern, with the dish that we've been dealt, we hope that we've done the best to address those.
But fundamentally, you could move those buildings to another part of this site and not have them standing 40 feet taller than the current elevation is of the ground that's out there.
Well,
You mean like Village Plan 6?
Right.
well, but
So your proposal hasn't changed. I'm just trying to be, I want to be very clear to the council, from a transparency standpoint, that theoretically, if you put these on a lower portion of the project, they would not be as impactful.
well, there's still an additional drop in footage, right? We drop another 60 feet into Village Plan 6, and there's more slope, so I can't guarantee anything on Village Plan 6 until we study it.
Okay, but the point being though is there's a 65-foot change in elevation from the bottom part of the project to the upper part of the project. If this building, or if these buildings were placed on another part of the project, theoretically, they would not be as prominent in the skyline.
Possibly, but I'm here to argue that they're not that prominent because we have a hillside behind us. We've changed the color of the buildings. They're not the white that you saw before. We've blended more with the natural colors. And
More like we've done with City Hall to make them disappear in the skyline.
right. So they now mesh in with the natural, and you can see the contrast of white in this picture for the condos that were, I think they're condos.
Okay, so I've definitely been one of the more vocal on this, and so I think that it's important for me to sort of share for this work session. Now, the heights, I'm not happy with that, but I appreciate your approach and how you came in, you talked about the roads, and I mean, some of the stuff was presented before, but just maybe not as well, and I'm giving you a little bit of a compliment here, so your bosses are gonna like hearing this. You're much less confrontational, and you actually listen, do what you can, but then you're also honest when you can't. Like, you were just honest with Mark, you're like, I can't, because the road, this slope, I can't. So now, that being said, if we are going to approve something like this with these heights, the landscaping doesn't solve many problems for me. In fact, I would rather take that extra landscaping money and fix some of the elevation, especially on the corners. So when I'm looking at these buildings, you know, you've got them beefed up a little bit, like, but if you go up on 2100, a little homework for you, because I know you love this. You're going up over by Quick Quack, there's two buildings that have just recently gone in that look a lot like your buildings. Their corners have two-story glass, very nice, it's very appealing. It is an ugly building other than the corner. Like, you look at the building, if you really look at it, they did a really good job of when you're going on 2100 and you're heading westbound, it just looks really good because of what they did with that architecture. So what I'm saying is maybe to win me over on the height is to take some of that money and potentially make the corners, and when I mean the corners of the buildings, because that's like your main viewpoint and the entrance and things. So just work on the facades.
Yeah, so one thing that
I would rather put the money into the facades than that extra landscaping, because I'm with Chris, like, come on, like, that's not gonna ever look like that. So maybe the existing landscaping, but if you make a building look really good, I don't care how much landscaping, because then the building looks really good.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I get it. I
So
will go look at those.
Those look great. The ones up on by Camp Williams or the NSA, ugly, right? We all know that and stuff. So let's be creative that way, because
Okay.
then if you have a building that's sticking up out of the sky, up into the sky, I mean, there's another building that's really high up into the sky that nobody really cares about because of the nature of that building. But if we make this building look better, then you're going to get a lot less pushback.
So we're kind of far away, and I didn't include the elevations because I didn't hear any concerns in that
Well,
meeting.
no, I'm giving this as now because your
Right.
height, and so maybe the
Right.
give is, we'll give you, I might give you the height if I have a nicer looking building.
Yeah, so we did, one of the concerns that staff brought up was that there weren't any enforcement type language in the village plan. So we have added a whole section for architectural. I didn't bring it this evening.
But this is just feedback,
But,
right?
yeah, but it does address stuff like fenestration and the amount of glass, the corners and edges, four-sided architecture.
So you
It brings us up to the standard of the HC architectural
Well, and there's
zone.
the HC architect, but if you exceed it, then the exception for this super high building, I'm gonna be like, okay, what is the city getting out of, what are the residents going to get out of this
Mm-hmm.
by going up higher? Similar to what we did with your previous projects, right? Like, you're asking for this, what
Mm-hmm.
are we gonna get in return? You're gonna asking for density, we're getting a linear park, a skateboard park down the middle of your development, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the kinds of things, like, so if I'm getting even beyond code, like, we're exceeding it with this, you know, especially where the views are the strongest, maybe it doesn't have to be on every single corner of every building, but then all of a sudden I start going, okay, I'm getting a superior building, which is gonna get leased faster, which is gonna bring in jobs quicker, and which is gonna, you know, because I have other buildings in the city like this that are sitting empty, right? And I wanna see, and I think that they'll fill faster if people feel like they get to be in a professional environment. Then I'm starting looking, okay, all right, the height I can live with if I get a nicer building. So this is just me personally, one, but I was your big opponent for the height.
Okay, okay, I appreciate
I'm
that.
just gonna say, I'd love both. I'd love shorter buildings and nicer architecture. I'm just saying that I was expecting a lower elevation because you guys came back to us and that was like a huge concern from everybody. And so I'm a little disappointed that there's not a change in that.
And we really tried. I
Which
want
I totally
want you
understand
to
that.
know
I totally understand that.
we
But to
had
Mark's
many-
point, like that was because that was our number one concern
Right.
before. So I expected something, at least that to be addressed a little bit. Everything, like Michael said, this is
Yeah.
a fantastic conversation compared to what we've had. Nothing against anybody else, but it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I forgot to mention to you guys that may help with diversity, and I don't know if I can get back there, but one of the things that we're proposing on this map, I don't know if you noticed it, but down in Village Plan 6, I forgot to mention that we came to you with 1,003,000 square feet of office warehouse, all the same type. Well, we are asking for this use only in Village Plan 5. What we're proposing is that we would restrict Village Plan 6 to 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. There are 60 acres in Village Plan 6. A third of that would only be used for office warehouse HC. The rest of it would be business park, commercial, and neighborhood commercial uses.
That's gonna be in the agreement?
So that could be in the agreement. We're willing to put that in there.
So,
Condition.
Can I talk about, uses as well? So there is a lot in here, this one right here. So you see footprints on these lots, but not on this lot, but it's also OW. So one thing that isn't coming into this discussion is what that footprint looks like. So the OW zone allows minor auto repair, auto sales, commercial bakery, commercial industrial, dockless shared mobility device deployment, hardware and home improvement, light manufacturing, schools or trade or vocational schools, and self-storage. So I wanted to bring that up just because at this point in time, we're not aware of what's being proposed for that.
You know what's going there yet?
We don't know what's going there yet. That's why we haven't proposed it. And until we get this built and things, we're not going to know really what that could or couldn't be. We don't want to limit ourselves. And we recognize that because we haven't disclosed it to you back in front of you to get a change. And you'd be able to given some input on that.
So as developers, whoever, just explain to me in like really simple terms why these buildings can't be put on the lower level.
Why they can't
They
be?
can't be on the lower grade. Like, why did they have to be up on the highest point in the
Village
highest
Plan
building?
6?
Go down to 6.
Oh, I'm sorry, not, yeah, the one that I just had addressed before, I thought we'd have lower buildings. So why can they not be built on the lower grade?
And I would have to have my engineers come and explain to you that I haven't dived into that spot.
You
My
want to put office warehouse there.
focus. So what was?
Third of it will be.
Well,
was there was all office warehouse, and what you
I-
had seen when Stephen pointed out the million, I heard 1.3 million very many times, very many times.
I will just say, the way is it the community plan talks about there has to be across all of these, a variety of uses. If we go a third, 50% of your property will be office warehouse. So I've been very transparent. If you're asking for an approval, this is a legislative decision. Future office warehouse for me is going to be 0.
So nothing in Village Plan 6?
No, so you may want to look at putting those, well, not you specifically, you know, unless you got an engineering degree really quick. Shifting some of those down and bringing it on a lower elevation, because from my standpoint, 50% is not what was ever envisioned when we brought this into the city.
So I do want to address that. You actually start going uphill again, so you come downhill and then you start going uphill. So Village 6 isn't necessarily
The
low.
west side of 6 is higher elevation?
Well, on the contours, it's higher, not lower.
Okay. So I agree with what Steven's saying. This whole area was previously entitled to a mix of uses. And I wasn't on the council at the time, but a previous council gave this vested right. And so I'm okay with it, but I don't want more.
So you'd be, but not in village.
So 6 can't have any more.
6 can't be.
I'm saying if I approved it this way, I wouldn't want more of it, yeah.
And we're in
Even
Village
though it's been
Plan
cut
4,
down.
5, 6, is that what?
We're 5.
Well, I know this is 5, but we also have, is it 4 and 6? There's 3 village
Red is
plans.
6, isn't it?
Yeah.
2, Village Plan 2,
On this map is 2.
5, and 6.
Yeah, the pink, green, red, and purple is 2.
Right.
So all of this, and then the blues and gray are 5 and 6.
So, all right, we'll just call it 1, 2, 3, because I'm simple tonight.
So,
Sorry, Lance.
Top,
and
middle,
I'll
and
be
bottom.
quiet. Just
Middle and bottom.
like, if we approve it this way, no more office warehouse across the community plan.
Would that
Well,
include
they're
light commercial?
asking for 1/3 of 6 to be office
And
warehouse.
I'm saying that's 0. That goes
Yeah.
from 1/3 to
There's no
1
other spot to
millionth.
put any more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
the question, so back up in that charter school that's up there, until that road gets built out, I know they're going to have another off-ramp and on-ramp. How is all those trucks, until we get this built out, get in and out? Is my question.
Well, right now, they're using the road in between the school and this site. That's
Right.
what they're using right now.
So you're going to have,
We did put a light in up on Wildflower Bowl.
yeah, so that-
And that interchange for the school.
but you're still talking hundreds of trucks going through a,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we already, I think Sarah was addressing the issue with the construction trucks right now that are going to the mines that are west. And that is a problem. This is going to be adding even more trucks to that road, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
Past
those,
past the condos and the
Yeah.
school, right?
was the plan to put the whole road in first, even through Village 6?
I would have to ask. I haven't concentrated, I haven't focused on that. I think that there is some hesitancy to
was-
go into Village Plan 6 because we don't know the footprints, and that's 5, 10 years away. Timing is the other issue. It's going to take time to build this project, and it's going to take time to get it leased up. We don't want to undertake a whole bunch of unknowns, and so the focus is on what we're calling Phase 1, which is Village Plan 5, and to see what happens there. And we would love to bring you your business centers and your retail outlets. We just need to see the growth happen and a demand increase here in Saratoga Springs.
Yeah, so I'm not a commercial real estate guy, and we talked about this in the office a few weeks ago. And again, this is a vested right that, you guys have for this product here. I'm not seeing massive demand. Like, we have this product in other places that isn't that it's not full. It's been sitting for over, a year empty.
And
So I mean, I don't want to, I hate to, I mean, it's not my money, but someone's going to
Well,
build
and
it.
that's
Someone's
right.
going to build it, and I don't want it to sit empty.
We're the ones that are taking that.
I know,
risk.
you take the risk, I get it, but
We also have empty buildings.
where's the demand for this?
So this is Jeff. He'll tell you about
Yeah,
that.
I'm
Yeah,
a,
great.
I am a commercial real estate guy. I'm with CBRE. I ran a survey about 12 months ago for the previous 12 months. And from about 7,200 south in Salt Lake County to 2,100 north in Utah County, there were 3 deals done in this type of space, which speaks to a lack of demand. I ran that same survey a couple of weeks ago to see what had happened in the previous 12 months. So I was 24 months ago, now I'm the last 12 months. I'm tracking 33 deals that have either been signed or are near execution in the same area. So we went from, we've 11 times the demand. So we did have a massive gap in demand for a little while after interest rates popped in 2023, but the point of the mountain has healed significantly in this type of space. The other thing that I'll say is that we spend a lot of time in these buildings trying to make them as flexible as possible. And so Councilmember McComber spoke of the Lewis Landing buildings in Lehigh that have the glass in the corner, and I work on those buildings. And we've had everything from floor and decor to Backyards Inc. We're currently under contract with one of them to be a flavor company that makes flavors for the different nutraceuticals in.
All of our MLMs, they do.
Yeah, yeah, and then we have a quilting company in the entirety of the other building. So the spectrum of uses that we'll get there, it runs from A to Z. And the hope is that we're building the most flexible buildings possible so that if an RC Willie comes, they can go in these buildings. If we get, a quasi-office user and we're able to park it, they can look at these buildings. But from a developer's standpoint, we want them to be flexible, and then we can come to the city and see if the use is acceptable.
Talk about the trucks, Jeff.
As far as trucks go, I would call this suburban industrial or suburban flex. It's not heavy distribution, not heavy manufacturing. And I've worked on millions of square feet of this type of space, and this is anecdotal, but you get 5 or 6 trucks a day in an entire park. So Bringhurst Station, which I've taken many of you there, it's on about 150 south on Redwood Road. If you were to go to that park and hang out there for a day, you'd see 3 to 6 trucks in the entire park. The uses, they're not designed to be heavy distribution. And heavy distribution users, they want to go to 36-foot clear buildings. They want big buildings that are much less expensive. These are expensive buildings. Just don't.
I think one thing on that topic is the parking, is some of the uses you mentioned would probably need a parking exception or something because of how it's parked right now. So just heads up.
And to that, I will say that as the leasing agent, the first question I ask, what's your parking requirement? Because as a landlord, you can't go lease a space to a tenant who has a really big parking requirement and then have, 50% left to lease and know that you're tripping all over each other. So it's one of the very first questions.
Well, or you come back and ask for use.
It would probably be similar to the other one where there would probably be requests for parking exceptions with some of those.
When you get like a recreational use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and generally,
There are locations too that we can add extra parking. We've added premium parking, but there are a couple of spaces here that we could expand if those users that have that come up.
it's also not the preferred tenant for a landlord or recreation use because you get drop-offs and pickups.
Just be careful, because we were told that several years ago about the North Shore, right? We have our preferred tenants, and it's not recreation uses, but we have recreation uses there.
Well, and that speaks to the previous 12 months where there were 3 deals done, and then the Pickler comes along and it's like somebody will pay rent. So I understand that during times of scarcity, there might be exceptions made, but they still have to
Preferred
fall.
uses unless it needs to be leased.
They still have to fall within the zoning.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to be snarky and.
Because you're not going to not approve it based on the uses if the
No.
uses are approved. in
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You're just giving them like some history.
Just some history, yeah, because we went through this.
Totally did.
So I would say I'm not as concerned like we were before on the distribution center with having the language in there and then splitting up the users. I don't know if 75% is the right trigger. I would ask Mark, and don't answer it now, because you probably, maybe you know right now, but have staff look at what's in a.
Back on that.
Okay, well, if you want, to me, it feels high, but again, like I'm having a hard time visualizing.
You're about the size of a, you say 75%.
I don't know. I try not to go to, my wife goes to Costco all the time. I only go to the hot dogs.
We're
so,
happy
like-
to, so you're saying that 75% is too high of a restriction? You'd rather see like 60%?
No, he's saying it's too liberal, like he wants it to be.
Like maybe 60-40.
60-40 something.
Well, not 60-40,
Oh, so they
but
could dominate too much of the building?
yeah.
I think 75 might be too high, but he's asking staff to just come back with.
Right.
Well, it's hard for us to know, actually, because we don't have these uses in our city. We would have to do some research and find out. So 75% of those buildings would be about 127,000, which would be similar to our Walmart. So it's hard to say, though, because it's totally different users. So when you put a warehouse
Not a
user in
Walmart.
there, we don't know what that means. We're comparing it to retail, where you can't even see all of the floor space because
Right.
of the storage areas. So it's hard to just, even though that gives us an idea maybe of scale, it doesn't necessarily give us an idea of how the
Right.
space is used.
So without any professional training, 75% feels high to me. To me, it's like 60 is like, hey, it gives you more than half the building, but not like a super majority of the building for those type of activities. That's
So-
just, again, I don't have a real estate license, so I
I
don't.
think just some understanding from staff and maybe real estate expert.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
For me, you say things something like RC Willie, and that's like red flags 500 gazillion times because the RC Willies that are in Utah right now are on industrial acres of land, right? And now that one might be going in 2 blocks from a single-family home, right? I don't know. They're too big. That's too much. I probably will never agree. I'm sorry, but and again, I'm one of 5, and so that probably doesn't matter. Yeah. But RC Willie, again, if you look at the one in University of Utah, it's by the mall. If you look at the one in Draper, it's with IKEA and all the other business stores, and 1-800 contacts are behind it, right? There's no residential. This is literally a block and a half, 2 blocks from
It's
homes.
1,700, it's a third of a mile.
Anyway,
So-
it's very, very close compared to the other big warehouses like that, right?
Within a
And
walkable distance.
yeah. And so for me, again, I drive around a lot and I look at this kind of stuff because I like to drive. And I also like to shop. And so I'm at those places, right? And it's too much.
So like an RC Willie in this phase might not work because it's too close, but an RC Willie, would it come in under commercial? Because it could possibly fit in 6
Should be regional commercial.
under a commercial or
Or
something.
maybe we shouldn't be using that name. I mean, that's what Chriselle threw.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm just saying hypothetically, but I see your concern, in this particular location. But there are some, furniture stores that are multi-level, like up in Layton, you've got those 2-story, 3-story,
Well, the one in Provo's several stories.
Yeah, so again, footprint and all that. But to your point, I think that's probably,
I just look around because I know we base a lot of like our codes and stuff on other cities as well. So I like to look what other cities are doing too when it comes to this
Yeah.
kind of project. And no one's putting an RC Willie a half a mile from a third mile.
well, and the parking requirements
Yes.
alone would destroy this site.
Can I just say that I used RC Willie
No,
as
I know, it's okay. I'm
example.
just saying as red flags are going off in
But-
my head.
It wouldn't change the building.
No.
So the buildings are fixed, and the point is that the buildings are supposed to be very flexible, so that when tenants, and I was originally responding to Councilmember Carn's comment that demand has been very light, and it has been. So as a developer, you build to the broadest use possible, so that a pickler could go there if it needs to, or an RC Willie outlet could go there. And the better example would be Floor & Decor. Floor & Decor has gone into buildings like this, and it's more of an outlet, not heavy traffic, and yeah, and so on 1700 South and I-15, if you look next to the old Jazz facility, I worked on that project, and Floor & Decor went in there. And I think if you were to go by it, you wouldn't feel like it's a nuisance to the
I mean,
neighborhood.
the uses that you outlined in Lehigh, in those buildings that you helped design or whatever, and you did a good job there, those are the kinds of uses that we're gonna see here. Quilting type companies, like those flavor formulators, they're like, it's all just like long machine, very little noise. It's, I mean, I've been in them before.
Very, like one truck a day max.
Yeah, they're
It's-
not really, because it's, a lot of times it's a van that
Yeah.
they just put the flavor in and they run it down to doTERRA or to whoever.
That's right.
And so, I mean, I think that was probably the better example of the uses, because I mean, my antenna went up too, just like yours. I was like, oh, and parking would minimize it as well. I mean, I think that, is there any other things that?
So can I ask a question? Sarah earlier mentioned storage units was an allowed use in one of those zones. And I know the council's had concerns about that in the past. I mean, is there any?
Is it heavy commercial?
Would it, what zone is that allowed in, Sarah?
Well, office warehouse would allow it, but heavy commercial would not.
And they're moving to heavy commercial, and they didn't ask for an exception for.
Well, here, this is heavy commercial. The rest is still office warehouse, and this one is office warehouse.
So I guess I'd go back to my earlier point is I'm not comfortable with any office warehouse after this. It'd have to be part of the agreement. You could always come back to another future council, whatever the makeup is, and have a similar conversation. But I would rather it be memorialized and trigger, you have to come back and have that conversation, request it, because anyone can request, developers can request whatever they want, I think.
The main thing is I want everybody to be aware that this is actually part of this village plan. Even though it's hatched, it's not coming back later, it's part of this, but we don't know what it is at this point.
But can
So-
we put in the
so
development
that's-
agreement, what Steven's saying, in the development
Yeah.
agreement,
Yeah.
if they try and put office warehouse, more of these big buildings, like maybe one of these smaller ones up here, they have to come back to the council.
Yeah, and then I would say on the heavy commercial, I think that's what you were talking about, Mark, on that. We would need to look at the uses individually there and what you're trying to get at, and probably lock it down further beyond just all heavy commercial.
So our
Did that answer your question? Like,
Well, I'm looking more specifically at the use of like, if they were to come in and try and bring a storage unit, storage facilities. And so my point being though, is this is a work session, but if there's a use like that you're adamant against, and I've heard you before in the past, then you'll want to make sure that they understand what you're also not allowing, or that you'd want to restrict it if that's part of your legislation.
I can't remember all the zones you had up on the screen. It was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but next to it was heavy. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with commercial, and what's the other zone? Regional commercial. Heavy commercial, I think we'd need to look at what's allowed in there, if that's guaranteed in, because I don't think we would want a big,
Office warehouse, heavy commercial, you don't want.
right?
So
So I would say regardless of where this.
Business park, the other one's business parks.
Oh, I think business park's great. I don't know. I would just say regardless where we're going, anywhere in the city, like I know at some point there'll be a freeway here, but we don't want this. If it's in Saratoga Hills or it's here or Loch Lomond, wherever, we don't want it to turn into the west side of I-15 in Salt Lake City.
Yep.
And that's what we're watching out.
That's
It's
what-
not just
yep.
this neighborhood, it's the whole city, wherever we go, we don't want. And hopefully Mayor Mendenhall's not upset at me for saying that, but that's the reality is we don't want.
We don't want California Avenue, we don't want.
And I know that's not what you're gonna build, but we're talking 20, 30 years when those trees finally mature. So,
And the bridge.
yeah.
And he'll be a permanent
Mark, can
resident
we
above
get
this.
a clear answer on why it's not feasible to put those buildings at a lower level? Like, is it water table? Is it like, I don't know if an engineer can answer that for me. Like, I don't know, like, why can we not? Is it just because it's not, like, money-wise, it doesn't make as much sense? Or is it like, what's the?
It's
like,
the cost, Kip Wadsworth, it's the cost of the road to take it all the way down to the other end thing is prohibitive. So you start where you're closest to the nearest road that's already built, and you work your way out. So to build that road.
Actually, I would contest that. I would say at Mount Saratoga, you do have a signalized intersection there.
Say that again.
At Mount Saratoga Boulevard, you have a signalized intersection.
Where this would connect.
The signal's already there.
He didn't mention the signal, he's talking about the grade.
I understand. I'm just saying that at Mount
Because the
Saratoga
road's already there,
Boulevard,
so you wouldn't
you
have
do
to.
have an ability to connect and be there. And I'm just thinking from an elevation standpoint, I don't know what elevation it is. It's not answering your question. I'm just saying there are other alternatives that could be considered, is all my point is.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, since I'm not the civil engineer too, but that elevation poses a problem along the whole site because of the drop. If you go back to the elevation thing, you can see that God left this piece of property that we're trying to make work with a 65-foot, elevation difference. And so we're trying to blend this in as best we can to make that work.
I don't know if it's going to blend in, no matter what.
Well, I think
Besides your colors, right? Like, it's gigantic.
maybe Chriselle could show you some of those elevations that we took. I think you guys have seen other buildings built that look horrible. And so in your mind, you're saying this is going to be the same dang thing. We're going to have a repeat of this building that's got this retaining wall in front of it. It's going to be horrible.
And an ugly building.
Yeah, and an ugly
I
building.
mean, let's be honest, right? I mean,
Chriselle, do you have a
So-
picture from I-15?
So what we did is sorry,
Okay.
that might not be a bad thing to have.
we went and tried to do that, but we couldn't see it from there.
Anywhere in like up Lehigh Main Street or?
Well, no, it's very hard with the naked eye. We asked our camera guy, hey,
Redwood. You can from
Maybe
Redwood
maybe
and
try
from.
Redwood. I mean, I think to Chris' point, as far east as you can get
okay,
to get us a shot wouldn't hurt.
okay.
Right, Chris? So you're
Yeah,
saying-
I mean, if the if the elevation is taller than another predominant building, and I can see that predominant building from the other side of the valley, I should be able to see this.
Technically.
Yeah.
It's higher in grade. This site is higher in grade.
Okay.
Like in front of it has higher grade.
The dirt, the ground level is higher, 30,
So
40.
the picture that I have on the
50 feet
screen
higher.
is the view. So this is camera angle number 1 on that.
Because I
this
don't
would
picture
be-
this standing out like the Las Vegas Strip or the billboard at Lehigh's Point of the Mountain.
Either do
I
I,
mean-
and I truly think that the flyover is gonna kind of block a lot of this.
Right. This would be what those condominiums, this is Redwood Road
Do you see the one?
coming north, looking east. So we have got, and we're about a third of a mile away with that. We're within that radius that I showed you. That's the mature trees with our new, and that's a long time, I know. but-
You gotta just cut those
Steven,
out.
I have,
Like that.
I have at construction, here you go. There's what you're looking at.
Just don't show the trees. I know, I love trees, but like, it's not,
You've already made that.
my grandkids won't see those.
I'm gonna get a map so I can see where I'm at.
Where's that one from?
This is view angle number 2. So this is across the street from the Wildflower community across Redwood Road. And it's looking across the mountain corridor. So that blank lot where you don't know what's going there, that's in front of what you're seeing. So whatever we built there will be much more visible than what's
What
being
was that,
there.
what was at one point going to be a physician's office? Or is that north of this?
So that's kind of north of this, that
North of
was
this.
called out on that major.
Can I just say real quick, I know I'm losing my battle on the height of it because I'm losing my battle, but I do appreciate the better-looking buildings. So the more architecture and the more things you can add to that would be great. Again, these are way better than the big white ones that we were expecting, right? So I love that. But again, the better looking, the better. I'll keep fighting the fight, but I'm probably going to lose on that side of it.
And I'll bring my engineer
on the height of the
next time.
buildings, but I do appreciate the better looking buildings. and
We
stuff like
come for our vote session, I will bring my engineer.
Thank you.
I wanted this to be more of a feedback.
No, this is exactly what we wanted. Thank
So
you.
What would be helpful, I think, and I don't know if it's possible, some type of view that shows, let's just talk about the ones that look terrible. It's on Lehigh and Redwood Road. Like, we
you
don't
can-
need to hide, it's
By
Lehigh, so who cares what
And
they
the
think?
reason you can see them, they're white,
Yeah,
Yes,
back
no,
up
that makes a
far
big
enough,
difference.
because I can see those from I-15 when I commute home.
right?
So showing a picture of that in relation to where this property is and maybe trying to, like you need some.
The fact that you can't see it maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You just need to put something in there because I drive by that monstrosity in Lehigh every single day.
I noticed it
And-
from my 15 the other day and went, who
Yeah,
is
but that was the one I was told by someone, you can't see it from I-15, but that was a
Yeah.
previous meeting. So,
So this is camera view 3, which is where Sarah pointed out that there's a 12 more feet of elevation to get to the intersection. So this is the camera view that Sarah talked about, because it's past our property line, but it's in front of the intersection.
Yeah, again, and then you're not gonna have trees like that. So I wouldn't even
Yeah.
worry about presenting the pictures with trees. I think your architecture, show off a pretty building.
Okay.
Then let's not block the building with trees. Let's have what you had before, your requirement by
We'll still
zone.
plant
But blocking
Plant
the-
trees, like you have to by zone, by code.
Right.
But let's see the building look good,
Right.
because that's what we're gonna see.
But that was, for me, it was what I heard from
Well,
the
it was-
red lines, we
Because of the
needed.
big white building.
We were desperate for anything, because we're like, you guys need something, like hide these buildings. But really, if you made the buildings good looking, then you don't have to worry about hiding them as much.
This is what I wanted to see, was
But-
when this interchange comes in, what's it gonna look like?
My one request, well, not one request, I had lots of requests, obviously, but when you come back in, some type of view that puts it in perspective.
Yeah, we can get that. And then this is from the southeast corner of the lot. This is taken on SR 73. And it sits at 4765 and is about 50 feet, 30 feet to our buildings that you're seeing there in elevation.
That's further up, that's, because you got a stop sign, that's at the next, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you're right.
So the
Lance.
buildings are further to the right, that's
Yeah.
why.
yes.
Oh, man, I hate that so much right there.
That's where the,
Oh, that's a bad view. It's fine.
But look, there's the trees.
Like those buildings, they're like right there.
And that's why
It's
let's
fine.
make them look as good
That's,
as.
it's, yeah.
And then this is where, one of the other concerns was that we're gonna be able to see this from your downtown, right? The heart of your intersection where people stop. And so we did add this camera view. I don't think anybody's seen this before, but that's,
That's a new one.
yeah. But that's what it looks like when you get the overpass in there.
I mean,
So.
just when the overpass happens, right?
That's right.
Okay.
overpass is 2032, so it's not that far.
Is that 2032?
If it's
Entire
stayed-
project's 2032.
That's the 2100.
So just to summarize, what I'm hearing is that there's still a concern about the amount of office warehouse that we'd be asking for in the overall project.
Yes,
And address architecture a little bit more
or a lot more.
and get you a view of your commute.
And I'll just say, my concern is, I won't approve it with any more office warehouse. I mean, it's not a concern you can address other than,
Not putting it in.
Not putting it in.
yeah, I mean, that's,
And we can discuss that internally and there's compromises to be made, but we've heard what you've said.
And does that include the hatched area and Village 6, or what does that include when you?
For me, it's
Area
Village
and
6.
six.
Well, for me,
the
it's
rest-
Village 6.
And the hatched area above it. Another warehouse building.
Or storage.
Yeah, no, it's-
Or one of the other 20 uses that are in office warehouse or heavy commercial. There's lots of uses that could be there. This is just the underlying zone.
Mark, what's our code right now on, is it a mile that storage uses have to be apart, or what is that?
Wow.
Or 5 miles, or?
Sarah, I can't recall.
It's
We
1
haven't had
mile.
one in a long time.
It's 1 mile. I'm
Is
pretty
it,
sure.
okay, I can check, just sure, but
No, that's okay. I think it's farther than that.
But Eagle Mountain's got
Oh,
storage.
I do have one
And
right
it
there.
counts.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does count. Does
The
it?
neighboring city?
Yeah, it usually doesn't.
I don't think it says, I checked the code, but I don't think it says within the city.
Okay.
I think the point being, though, is this is a legislative
The
decision.
half mile.
Half mile.
mile.
This is a legislative decision, and
Oh, that makes sense.
you guys
1 mile.
have to agree to what you're wanting to.
Okay.
I just was reviewing a list of tenants that I'm working with in the market to kind of, I'm thinking about the 75% of one building. And I just want to understand the process. If we have a tenant that we think we would really want, the city would really want, but it's larger than 75% of a building, is that just a conditional use at that point where we could potentially bring a tenant that everybody thinks is beneficial, or what would the process be?
Well, maybe don't have 75% in all 3 buildings. Maybe it's no more than one of the 3 buildings. I don't know. Like,
I'm personally okay with up to 75%, but I don't have a vote, so.
well, you're
Well,
asking about more than.
I'm asking like, okay, so for an example, Ortho Development is a company I'm working with right now, and not in Saratoga, but they manufacture artificial hips and knees. They need a corporate headquarters. And preferably that corporate headquarters is a freestanding building with nobody else in it, so that they can keep the cleanliness and all their standards. I assume the city would want high-paying jobs and engineers and doctors and whatever. So I just want to understand, because I'll be the one out answering the questions.
I think short and sweet, if it's bringing jobs, it would be conditionally.
Living wage jobs.
Well, we-
just
Living
don't
wage.
warehouse jobs.
Yes, not $8 an hour.
Well, because like that one, you're having it as a headquarters, there's gonna be an office area. So
Right.
almost it's 75% is gonna be their manufacturing and 25% was gonna be their offices. But I mean, I think it's conditional use.
To be specific, they're
Sorry,
going
let
to do.
me, hold on. Sorry, we took conditional uses out of our code,
No, we
so we
didn't.
don't.
Well,
So we could, it could be a village plan amendment.
yeah, and isn't there a process too, like that they had, I mean, maybe it's a legal thing that they have to come in, hey, here's our required, like a variance or something like that?
Not anymore. Yeah, there used to, conditional uses used to be in the code, but they've been out for a long time because of state legislature.
I think the takeaway is it's possible, and if it was bringing jobs to the area that are high-paying, livable wage, we're not going to say, no, we don't want that.
Okay, not to belabor the point, I know it's getting late, but when I'm standing on site and I have a really good tenant that I think we would all want, and they're going to take a whole they would like to take a whole building, I'm going to have to answer timeline questions.
We can build a process into the community plan, so different, like along these lines, but not exactly a condition.
Not conditional use.
We can build a process for the council to approve that into.
Because I wouldn't want a single use in all three buildings, but if the perfect tenant is gonna bring $150,000 paying jobs, like set 20 of them to the city, then obviously
Right.
we'd like to be able to consider that because, and it's not high use, not a lot of trucks and things. The whole purpose of breaking up the building is you have that other language is just to make sure that we get multiple uses.
I would suggest just work with Sarah and put
Build it
some-
in.
Yeah,
build it in,
we'll
so
all work
there's a
together
request
to
process.
Draft that.
To make it possible.
Correct.
We'll make sure there's a hole that you can get through.
You can do anything in 30 years. I'm just kidding.
If
They
we,
will make sure there's a hole they can get through.
yeah, if we all want it,
Like, you know what I
if
mean?
everybody wants it, I just need to be, the friction will kill deals. So if I can understand how to bring something that
You'll make sure
everybody
there's a
wants.
process that
Okay.
Yep, there'll be a process. Perfect.
With that, so Sarah, would that be something, because we're working on a big amendment for
Yeah, we'll put
community.
it in the one we're working on.
Oh, the current one?
Yeah,
Okay,
put it
perfect.
in this current one, so when it gets approved, it's in there.
It's in there. Okay, perfect.
But the
Thank you.
default would be multiple users.
Multiple
Yes.
users,
And then there would be some sort of,
process in place for counts. Yep.
So in my mind,
But
is
when a
that
really big
75?
bouncy house place comes in,
So is 75% on the table still or not with
You can
this
bring back what you
process?
want. You've heard from us.
I'd like staff's opinion.
Yeah,
on
you've
it.
heard from us, so work with staff and come back with what
We
you
need
want.
more info.
Okay.
I would like a 160,000 square foot car wash.
Plans.
swig.
Car wash is not a permitted use.
If it's a bouncy house, it has to be Mark's bouncy house
Okay.
name.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for going back and listening to the minutes. Appreciate it, that showed.
Thank you for listening to
You're
us,
welcome. You're welcome.
like today.
That's what my job is. I
Perfect.
appreciate
No
this work.
lower elevations. That was
Perfect. I will adjourn the meeting.
Appreciate it.